You want me to put that for you, Betty?
Oh, sure.
Less for you to.
I love your polka dotted sweater. It's life. It's hot.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Today is Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, and we're on our second day of our budget workshop. Let's call this meeting to order, and I would like to ask the clerk to please call the roll. If you are-
Supervisor Abikoga,
Here.
Supervisor Jung,
Here.
Supervisor Ellenberg,
I'm here.
Vice President Arenas,
Here.
and President Lee.
Good afternoon, present.
5 present.
Thank you. So, all present and counted for. If you are in chambers and require Spanish or Vietnamese translation, the translation devices are available at the back of the chambers. The clerk can assist you with the setup. Translation is also available on Zoom using the interpretation button. Additionally, as a gentle reminder for public commenters, staff, and those of us on the dais, please speak clearly and at a measured pace directly into the microphone to ensure accurate translation. All right, and may I ask Vice President Arenas to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today?
Please stand if you're able. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty, so we are continuing our item from yesterday, moving to the review. Item 13 today in the agenda. Actually, yes, it's the overview of the department under the Children, Seniors, and Families Committee. But before we hear the overview, I just want to have a friendly reminder that public comment would only be heard once under the overview of each of these items. So if I could ask my colleagues if you would like to hear all the items under item 13, and which one would you like to pull, like we said earlier. So I'll start down the line here with Supervisor Abikoga. Which of the 13? Yeah, 13, go ahead.
I don't have any, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Young,
13C.
13C. Supervisor Ellenberg.
13C as well, specifically for anyone that's getting ready. My questions are around family housing and senior nutrition.
Okay, and Vice President?
Same one.
All right. And let's see. Okay, all right, so we are pulling 13C. I want to see if there's anybody in the public. Let's do that first. Anyone in the public, 13A through C, would like to speak? Clerk, good afternoon. Who do we have?
Good afternoon. I'm I currently have 3 cards for item 13 in chambers, and I have 3 hands raised in Zoom.
3 and 3. Good. I believe we have 2 minutes each.
Okay. Please approach the podium as I call your name in any order. As directed by the chair, you'll be given 2 minutes to speak on item 13. I have a Kevin Lee, Miriam, and Carly Eka.
So just be clear, item 13 is for the Children, Seniors, and Families Committee items today only. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Kevin Lee, and I'm here again on behalf of Special Olympics Northern California. Yesterday, you heard directly from our athletes, parents, and advocates about the value of our partnership. Today, I want to share more about how your investments directly support children, seniors, and families within the broader context of the IDD community in Santa Clara County. We provide year-round programs for children and adults with intellectual disabilities, including sports, inclusive education, leadership training, and health and wellness initiatives. In Santa Clara County alone, 518 individuals participated in our sports programs last year. Through our Unified Champion Schools program, we reached over 13,974 students across 44 schools and 60 classrooms, promoting inclusion, empathy, and wellness from pre through kindergarten through transition and post-secondary life skills. Our health and wellness program mobilizes volunteer professionals, podiatrists, dentists, optometrists, nutritionists, mental health experts, and more to provide free in-person health screenings. At our 2024 Summer Games at Santa Clara University, we provided over 2,000 health screenings, including a day dedicated to children ages 2 through 8. Research published in the Journal of Policy and Practice in Intellectual Disabilities found that Special Olympics athletes had significantly fewer medical and pharmacy claims over a 10-year period than non-athletes, saving nearly $80,000 per person after controlling for race, ethnicity, and age. Meanwhile, according to California's National Core Indicator Survey, 70% of adults with IDD report no regular physical activity. Our programs are preventative care in action, addressing disparities, reducing long-term healthcare costs, and supporting some of our most vulnerable residents. I ask for your continued investment in the health and well-being of our athletes and our children, seniors, and families of the IDD community here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just want to make sure everybody understands that this portion is relating to item 13 today, which is the Children, Senior, and Families Committee. Thank you. Come on up.
Hello, my name
Hello.
is Mary.
Go ahead, please.
Okay.
We can hear you loud. Yeah.
My name is Mariam Wahab. I am a social worker 3 at DFCS and an SEIU 521 Union Chief Steward. In December of 2023, the Board of Supervisors issued a moratorium on DFCS to include but not limited to the following, where to achieve a balanced process for DFCS cases based on best practices, to right-size and rebalance staffing levels using the best tools and mechanisms inside DFCS to align with the workload, reporting staffing levels and caseloads, achieving appropriate staffing levels unit by unit. Report policy and practice changes made to DFCS, including formal changes made to the online policies and procedures and the DFCS foster care handbook, but also a comprehensive analysis of the additional changes to informal policies and practices, as well as reporting relating to policy options for board considerations that would allow for increased oversight of cases where appropriate, even where there's not a removal. Options should include expanding the number of cases that are referred to court supervision and other methods to make safety plans and family service referrals mandatory, not voluntary, and reporting relating to employee engagement regarding the options for structural changes of DFCS. Since October of 2024, DFCS has not included supervisors or workers regarding policy, process, structural or staffing processes. The outcome of this has led to policies that target families of color while burning out the current staff. One of the key areas that needs to be looked at is the hiring process for the academy on how individuals are trained In addition to this, ESA has submitted job specification revisions for social worker ones, social worker twos, and social workers threes that would cause increase in difficulty to recruit
Thank you.
staff.
Any remaining comments, you could also turn over to clerk and we'll make it part of the record. Thank you. Okay, please come up.
Hello, my name is Carly Eacock. I am a social worker with Department of Family and Children's Services, and I am also a SEIU Assistant Chief Steward for the Worker Chapter. In addition to what Miriam was saying, recently our county executives have proposed changing job spec revisions to make it more challenging and raise the minimum requirements to hire qualified workers into the county. We are already struggling in this county. We've had a staffing crisis over the past 2 years. We continue to have staffing crisis. Our workers in the most critical areas are being extremely impacted right now, and the county is now proposing to make it more challenging to onboard workers. We ask the county rescind policies and memos that are targeting families of color willfully and intentionally, and to engage staff on changes in a way that allows real feedback and opportunities to have a voice, not just to check a box. We asked to return to utilizing the Emergency Response Committee to address some of the concerns that are happening in our most critical area, and rescind the job spec revisions that will harm staff and our community in the long run. Thank you.
Our next speaker is on Zoom. Again, this is for item 13. Ben Z, please accept the unmute. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, hello, good afternoon. I mean, you guys just heard from the social worker that there are concerns with the emergency response for our children. I don't understand why this county is using or making emergency responses or screenings a discretionary expenditure. It should be mandatory, and it just isn't in this county. My son, he's reported being sexually molested, that my ex-wife was letting somebody rape him, that there was sexual contact between 2 of the children. There was also unnecessary bathing with the children, and all the children, you know, were affected, and you could see it in their personality. They became withdrawn and they became anxious, and you know, for some reason, the county is withholding spending money on a screening for my kids, and that's because there's a conflict of interest in my former attorney. She wants the sexual abuse to continue, and this is completely unacceptable if the county is not spending the necessary money to protect my kids. And this is happening to many other parents in our county. If you speak with Catherine Campbell, if you speak with Violet Brooks, if you speak with Dia Braun, even Ellie Lorenzo, who passed away, the county completely neglected her when her mother made reports. I mean, and what about baby Phoenix and Jordan Walker? It's terrible what's going on in this county. It's evil to allow a child, to knowingly allow a child to be molested when you can do something about it. Thank you for your time.
The next speaker.
I just want to mention also a quick comment is that California law does prohibit the disclosure of information related to an investigation on suspected child abuse. We are not authorized by law to speak to specifics of any particular case or results of an investigation in that case publicly. The law also requires that child welfare departments immediately cross-report these abuse allegations to law enforcement and the district attorney, so swift action can be taken when needed. The public can be assured that our county takes all allegations of child abuse and neglect seriously and take appropriate action, and that includes rapid and cross-agency response to such allegation with the Department of Family and Children's Services, local law enforcement, Child Advocacy Center, and the district attorney. Thank you. Thanks, yeah.
The next speaker is Wesley Mukiyama. Please accept the unmute. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Board of Supervisors. I am not making a comment on this particular issue. I'm making a general comment requesting the board to consider the Enemies Alien Act of 1798 and as a sanctuary county, opposing the use of that act, which incarcerated 120,000 Japanese Americans in 1942.
Excuse me, sir. Yeah, this item is only for the Children, Seniors, and Families Committee and not for the public comment period, which actually was held yesterday. I apologize, but this is not the period to comment on that. Sorry about that. Next speaker, please.
The next speaker with their hand raised is Paul Soto. Please accept the unmute.
Thank you, Paul Soto from the Horseshoe. I reviewed yesterday's budget meeting, and I was very impressed with the comments that were coming from Supervisor Arenas. I want to say that I appreciate it, that there needs to be a particular metric. I'm going to keep pushing on this because the racial equity definition is not a definition. It's an aspiration and it's an explanation, but it's not a definition. And when we're discussing racial inequities, the children and seniors on the east side of Samo are necessarily impacted by that because these are generational issues that have never been properly accounted for. The only time that these, the issues that residents, children and seniors on the east side are confronted with, the only way that those can be addressed is through the budget. There is no other way to address it. You can't address it rhetorically because that isn't going to change anything. It's not going to address the conditions that they're being challenged by. So what I'd like to reinforce the fact that there was a report that was requested and an analysis made regarding the disappearing of those thousands and thousands of children in San Jose Unified School District, Allen Rock School District, and McKinley School District. We need to make those assessments in that.
Thank you. That was the last speaker on this item.
All right, thank you very much. All right, so now that we have, we'll go ahead and close the public speakers portion. Yes, Supervisor Ellenberg.
Thank you very much, President Lee. And thank you again to the three departments in this committee for their work in preparing the budget and in providing really the most basic and essential services that we do. I'm going to ask some questions first around family housing funds that are in the budget. And I'll start with the Bringing Families Home project. In the current budget year, that's funded with $3.932 million. And this is for families in the child welfare system experiencing or at risk of homelessness. I don't see a dollar amount at all in the proposed FY 25-26 budget. Is that there? There was, we heard something about a request to eliminate the ongoing budget appropriation for both Bringing Families Home and Home Safe, but I'm hoping that's not the case, and someone can better explain that to me.
If there was any proposed elimination of an amount that was ongoing in the base, it would be reflected as an item in the budget document. So I'll look to the agency about that, but it's not a proposal to reduce that ongoing funding.
So this is state funding that I certainly hope we wouldn't be turning down. And is the state not funding it this year? Bringing Families Home 3.932330 in this year's budget.
So Supervisor Ellenberg, Wendy Kinnear-Rausch, Department of Family and Children's Services Interim Director, I can answer that. So
Great.
there is a great deal of advocacy happening right now on whether the Bringing Families Home is going to continue or not. I can tell you there's a lot of advocacy. This would be, if we end up having it continue, we will absolutely accept those funds. We need them, and we'll continue to serve those families. And there's been a lot of advocacy for all of the child welfare directors to make sure that continues. We're on a holding pattern on whether or not that will continue. In addition to that, we have done an assessment if it does not continue, those families that will be impacted. And so in an effort to make sure that we continue our commitment to them for the time period that was given to those families, we will honor that. We have costed that out, and we will be prepared for our one-time allocation under the Families First Prevention Services to be able to honor that commitment to those families should that allocation not come forward.
Meaning that we wouldn't be taking any new families.
Correct. No new families, but we would continue our commitment.
So I'm going to make a collective point soon about a few of these items, but Supervisor Arenas yesterday made a very poignant observation about when and what we choose to backfill and what we say, well, we don't have the funding for this anymore from the state or the feds, so we can't do it. And if there's anything that we should be continuing to fund, it should certainly be young families who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. The other fund that falls into this category is for, I believe, older adults. The Home Safe program has a net change of less 2.95 million, and this supports the safety and housing stability of individuals involved in adult protective services. Again, another critical population. The other two funds that I want to draw attention to are the CalWORKS Housing Support Program, which provides time-limited housing and care management to families in the CalWORKS program. We currently have 110 families enrolled, and that doesn't have a budget number next to it either.
So if I can make a few kind of overall comments regarding these items. We, of course, support a tremendous amount of resources for housing for families and others in need. Our general fund-related support for those services doesn't fall under the Social Services Agency. So you'll see those investments, including in the recommended budget, the largest single backfill for federal lost funding is actually in the Office of Supportive Housing, even larger than the amount for public health, precisely to the point, Supervisor, that you just made, which is the prioritization of those kinds of services. The reason you won't see that in the Social Services Agency budget is because the only reason these other programs live here is because of those state funding streams. And in fact, one of the programs you referenced, which is related to the CalWORKS HSP, HSTAP program and DEBS, you'll see that there's the flip side of that proposal shows up, in fact, in the Office of Supportive Housing's budget, and I think that's probably the better place to talk about that particular proposal, which is a reflection of the loss of state funding for that particular program, but that's not a reflection, of course, of the county's investments in supports, housing supports for those populations. It's a reflection of the loss of that particular state funding that in the case of that program was being dollar for dollar basically transferred over to the Office of Supportive Housing.
So thank you for that, James. What I want to feel confident about is that these cuts do not impact children and families who are at risk of becoming homeless. And the one impact that I've already heard is that with the Bringing Families Home program, we will fulfill our obligations to the current families, but we won't continue that support. So that to me is a cut that would impact children and families who are at risk of becoming homeless.
And I don't know if KJ wants to come forward and talk about kind of the broader spectrum of things, but we,
Thank you for coming over, KJ.
but we
I know
obviously
you're
have
up later.
significant investments in supporting families outside the context of this particular program.
That make up for the loss. That's where I'm looking for either net neutral at a minimum, or net positive would always be a delight, because it is scary to see numbers go down to zero.
Go ahead, KJ.
Yes, so thanks for the question, Supervisor. So with the, and I'll speak to the CalWorks HSP and the HSTAP program reductions. So those, we have historically had some increases so that we were able to serve more families and individuals with those programs, and this reduction reflects going back to the state base, if I'm correct, and folks are nodding at me. Those individuals that were served with those additional funds would be served, potentially served in our rapid rehousing programs. It's a very similar model. We'll continue to work with the department to make sure that the families that would be served are accessing the rest of our supportive housing system through the channels that are, or through the typical access way, through our coordinated entry system.
Thanks, KJ, and you know that I have tremendous respect for and faith in our system to get people into housing, as slow as it often feels. It was a heightened concern to me, of course, because we're seeing growing state and local efforts to address homelessness through enforcement and punitive measures. And I want to make sure that at this, even in this very challenging fiscal time, that we are not backsliding with families and putting them at risk, not only of being and remaining homeless longer, but having other penalties thrown their way for lack of more creative and thoughtful options. So I think maybe the best thing to better understand the impact and the scope of the reductions is maybe to wait until this afternoon, or wait until we get to the OSH item. But kind of what I'm looking to understand is the funding sources, our current total funding applications. My team helped me make a chart. The current total funding allocation, the number of people served, and opportunities to restore funding. This can either be a budget request for information or reassurance this afternoon as we talk about families under Hewlett family housing.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to talk about under-office
Okay.
supportive housing, and we can explain how we're actually providing an additional $27 million in ongoing general fund to that department to backfill for these whole variety of impacts.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you for hustling over here, KJ. My other comments are about the senior nutrition program, and I want to share with everyone on the dais a memo from May 9th on funding needs for the senior nutrition program. This was put together by the program manager for the senior nutrition program and the senior management analyst. And I'll start by saying that our county has made some really significant investments over the years in our senior nutrition program. I am proud of that, and I'm glad we're continuing to do so. But I have some concerns about the amount of general funds we're contributing, especially as I compare them with the funds that we're receiving from our area agency on aging, which is SourceWise. So when I was reviewing this document in preparation for the budget, I, of course, saw data that Santa Clara County receives one of the lowest reimbursement rates for congregate meals and home-delivered meals from our agency, which I think is putting an intolerable strain on our general fund to maintain the quality of the program and to meet existing needs. If we look at page 5, Santa Clara County receives, I'll just compare for congregate meals, SourceWise reimburses us $3.14 per meal. Sonoma County reimburses $8.90, LA $9.22, Shasta County $11, San Francisco $6.22, Napa and Solano $7. I am not clear, and I'm not expecting you necessarily to know the answer to that right now, but why we are receiving such low reimbursement rates. I see that we have the opportunity to get extra funds from different, from SourceWise on a one-time basis if we tell them we're running low, but that's certainly not conducive to long-term planning. I also know that our challenges with SourceWise data date back many years, well before my time. Supervisor Yeager and Supervisor Simidian tried to wrestle this down, and I truly think that our county deserves better service and certainly greater transparency with SourceWise. So I'm going to offer direction today, and then somebody can tell me if this needs to be a referral or if James just says, yes, I'm happy to do it. But my direction, James, is to ask you to send a letter to SourceWise with copies to the Board of Supervisors and the California Department on Aging Director, Susan Demeroy, who knows about our long challenges, requesting the following. First, copies of SourceWise's CDA 122 Area Plan Budget Form for fiscal 25-26 and the 2 previous fiscal years. SourceWise has not published that document in their recent area plan update. They just note that they have submitted that budget to the state, but we haven't seen it and can't find it. The letter should also direct SourceWise to explain why Santa Clara County receives reimbursement rates which are a half to a third of amounts being reimbursed to LA, San Francisco, Sonoma, and Shasta counties. Is that a motion? Is that a referral? Is that
No, we're
random
we're very
direction?
happy to do that, and we'll probably add on to that with some additional requests too. We're extremely concerned about the low reimbursement rate. The fact that it's a third of what is being paid by other area agencies on aging to similar urban counties is creating a significant general fund burden for our organization and is limiting our ability to expand this much needed program. So we emphatically share that concern, as I know you're aware, Supervisor, but for the benefit of all of your colleagues, there's been ongoing conversations in these chambers for many years around some of the very significant concerns associated with SourceWise, lack of transparency on the fiscal side, and concern regarding support for the county's programming in this area. And there may be some new opportunities that we should also explore with regard to that relationship so that we can try to rectify those long-standing structural issues. But specific to this, we will absolutely proceed with those requests, and we're going to proceed with being much more assertive in conversations with SourceWise, because this, the limited reimbursement that we're getting is causing significant strain to the program, and that's inhibiting our ability to deliver that service.
Thank you. And just for my colleagues' benefits, I'm sure you can't wait to read this memo. The middle paragraph of page 5 is actually even more compounding, because it describes that in order for the county to meet the matches, somehow we have to invest 3 times the grant amount from our general fund. So the whole thing, I do want to thank the authors of the memo. It's really clear, the data is clear and well cited, and I think it's time to address this issue in a way that that changes outcomes in the long term. And I want to be clear that I strongly support our senior nutrition program. I do not want to see it back down at all, but where there are other funds that are owed to us or should come to us, those funds should be spent first, and we should maximize those first. Thank you. That's all I have, Supervisor Lee.
Thank you. All right. Yes, Vice President Arenas.
Thank you. I'm just going to continue with the senior nutrition because I also have, and thank you so much for providing us with this report. I know sometimes a lot of our information that comes to us gets buried, but this is really important to fix the structural issues with senior nutrition. The other piece that I'm hoping that we can come back with is to help maybe establish a heat map or a needs assessment showing where the actual need for senior nutrition or seniors live, where there is a lack of, or deserts, food deserts, and then where we are actually providing services. Can you add that to the report, James?
Yeah, I think that'll be a separate report, but sure.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. All right. I'm going to move on to another item. So this is the reducing the approximately $900,000 in ongoing funds and increased revenue estimate by approximately $1.23 million for several budgeted contracts in the continuum of care programs. This is the budget adjustments that align with the home-based family care rate structure. And what I'm wondering is, what is it exactly that we are reducing and then increasing there? Because we're decreasing 900,000 and then we're increasing the revenue estimate by 1.23. Could someone help break that down? This is from page 349 to 361.
This is the AB 403.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. That's it.
Daniel, I assume you're going to field that question?
Yeah, I think Daniel's going to look up the specifics. I can say that overall, for this item, there's not going to be an impact on the actual services provided, but I'll let Daniel provide the specifics on where the funding is going.
Wonderful. As you know, I submitted a memo so that we could establish for the very first time our SDRTPs, our short-term residential facilities here in our county, so that we can do away with our scattered sites and place our youth that have high acuity needs in an appropriate therapeutic setting. And part of the response to my request was that we were going to have kind of a layered approach, if you will. The first line of support would be the ISFC plus. There's so many acronyms. I don't like it. But this is the intensive service foster care, right, as the primary line of support. And that would be generally for most of our kiddos, and then, of course, our STRTPs, and then some other levels of support. And so I'm just wondering, I want to make sure that how does this help or impact our future plans with this layered support approach?
And Supervisor, thank you for that. Maybe I can provide, again, a kind of a general question and let Daniel go into the specifics. This was actually something that the state did that was a positive in looking at the formulas and how counties are reimbursed traditionally for foster care. So the majority of this is an adjustment to the rates for foster care support. which are going to help with our general foster care kind of placements. I think, Supervisor, what you may be referencing is the ongoing ability we have for some of the innovative funding, which would be separate and apart from this item. But I'll let Daniel provide any additional specifics.
So this wouldn't impact those ISFC plus providers that specialize in higher level of care for our foster care?
Correct. This would be more of the traditional kind of foster care reimbursement.
Okay. And so then, can you explain why, even if we are receiving an increase in revenue, we're still decreasing the ongoing funds?
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Arenas. These are actually unrelated items. The increase of revenue is the state changed the way that they were funding us for our continuum of care program, the CCR. And so the 1.2 million, that's new revenue that's coming to, it's a change in the way that they were sending the revenue to us to reimburse for the foster care. The $909,000 reduction, those are they're appropriation that could be used for foster care and wraparound contracts, but they're not currently being utilized. So we were reducing unutilized appropriation.
That's where I'm trying to figure out, why is that underutilized?
It's mostly an eligibility issue.
Okay, and so that tells me either we're not investing in growing our foster care community. So tell me what the plan is there. What's the approach?
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor. The eligibility piece that Daniel referenced is children, one of the requirements to receive that reimbursement from the state is specific 4E eligibility. So there's specific income, there's other requirements that have to be met. And we have a shrinking number of children in our county that meet kind of those federal and state requirements for that level of reimbursement. So that's kind of what we're fighting against. Is I think there's some outdated methodology for how that funding is allocated and determination for eligibility. So I think that's why we're seeing a decrease in the number of kids that are eligible for that piece of reimbursement through these services.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for an off-agenda report because I really want to understand what this reduction and then reduction in ongoing funds and then increase in the revenue, and then what is the approach in our foster care community, because part of what we do up here is we provide policy and we provided some direction around foster care, especially through our child welfare reform process that you're, I know, very intimately involved in. And that means growing our foster care community so that we can make sure that the children who are removed from their homes, when and if, have a safe place. So I want to know what's the approach and what's the policy that you're following around foster care. I know that in the past there might have been a reduction in our foster care homes, and I want to know what's the breakdown. What have we invested maybe in the last 3 years in foster care homes, or and what we're doing now currently to grow, because obviously we have children that need to be placed. All right, so that's my request for that, and I'll make my comments around the homeless families issues that you brought up. Thank you so much, Supervisor Ellenberg. I appreciate that, and I'll put them in wait for that item 15 to do that. But I get so excited with especially with the comments that are made and some of the observations. Sometimes we don't catch everything. But you'll see and you'll hear from me, once again, questions around if there's changes in how we are funding something. Usually that means that's a shift in the way that we're providing a service. And if it's a shift in the way that we're providing a service, then when you bring the proposals here, they're almost half-baked, right? So either we finish baking them, or we say, no, this is not the right ingredients. This is not the right recipe for our community. And at least for me, this is the approach that I'm taking, because it's part of my responsibility to ensure that the policy continues to remain with the board. Anyways, I just want to be able to break that down so that when I make my other comments, it's understood where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Supervisor Young.
Presently, I'm good on this item. My colleagues have asked the same question, well, it's raised the same issues that I had concerns over, so I will give you back that time.
Great, thank you. And I do have a couple of short comments on this one. First, I'm certainly glad to see that in the budget that the county executive recommended the $101,000 for supporting the stand-down event for our veterans. Certainly, this is a type of investment needed in our veterans community to show that veterans and the families in our county, we are here to stay and support their health and well-being. I have attended last two stand-down events last couple of years. I certainly look forward to see the continued growth of this annual event and can't wait to see the exciting things that our VSO director and the entire team will be doing to connect up veteran services they deserve and desperately need. This budget proposal, however, is actually quite a bit less than what VSO initially requested, which is $275,000 to host a 3-day stand-down and 2 one-day stand-down events. Now, with the reduced allocations and recommended budget, are we still able to do the 3 different stand-down events or turn it into one large 3-day stand-down event? So that's a question to see if we could get some clarification, since this is a delta of $173,000 from the initial request. So if you could see if this is something that if we can't meet it, but we still need more money, is this something that we could potentially work with private parties or nonprofit to fundraise the rest of funds to keep these events successful and open?
Yeah, thank you for the questions,
Yes.
President Lee. So the amount that's requested is based on the actuals from the prior year. We are extremely excited to still have this opportunity to provide that much needed service. I know that with Darlene, our VSO director, we will be looking at additional ways that we can supplement and ensure that we have the broadest outreach possible.
Good, thank you. Yeah, so please keep me posted, especially since I'm the veteran right here, and really would like to make sure that this event is not shortchanged, and it has been proven to be extremely successful in the past couple of years. So I just want to make sure that if needed and more funding is needed, I would be happy to do whatever it takes, whether from government side or if we need some private fundraising to make sure that this event is going to happen. Thank you. All right, and that's I have on 13. Yes, sorry, Vice President. Go ahead.
Sorry, I forgot that I actually wanted to talk a little bit about the CalWorks program services, and I know that there is a cut for incentives and activities, and I wanted to know what the impact would be, because I'm going to guess that the incentives at least serve a purpose. I don't know what the activities, what the impact will be.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Supervisor. So our current CalWorks incentive program will continue to remain as is, so there will be no changes to providing any kind of cash assistance or incentives to our existing or future CalWorks clients. What I think has happened is a combination of 2 things. Over the past 10 years, I think we've seen almost a 50% reduction in the number of eligible clients in the CalWorks programs. I think that's due in large part to the rising cost of living here. We also have a combination of outdated rules and regulations and requirements for those families that haven't kept up with the rising cost. So we've just, as a county of our size, we have proportionately less individuals who actually meet the threshold to qualify for these programs. So as the program has decreased, we don't have the ability to spend all of this money that we're carrying. that really crosses over across our cap. There's a hard cap on how much counties can spend on this that would go into county general fund. So the size of the program has shrunk so much based on really those factors that the existing program will continue on. But we just cannot spend this money. We don't have the number of clients to be able to do that.
So if we're not spending this money, we're reducing it, and where is it going?
It's going to be it's an adjustment of the allocation in our budget.
So that means, are we returning this funding to the state? What are we doing with the money?
No, we're not returning the money to the state.
Yeah, I didn't think we were returning the money, but I want to know where it's going.
What we're requesting here is to return the budget appropriation back to the general fund. At the moment, if we don't have the clients to spend this money on, and if we did have the clients, the state would not reimburse us. So what's happened over the years, as Daniel was saying, is that the client base has shrunk. We've had this budget for many years. It was set up over a decade ago, and at the moment, we're only utilizing 50% of it. And so what we're proposing is a 40% reduction to this appropriation that's existing.
And just to reinforce that, this is a program that we really believe in. We're going to continue to provide it. We believe that our projections for future clientele, that we'll still be able to provide the same level of service to them.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, James, go ahead.
Oh, if there were no further questions on SSA, I wanted to comment on an update on some federal impacts related to SSA.
Please.
So late yesterday, the House Agriculture Committee, which has jurisdiction over SNAP, which is the Federal Food Assistance Program, released its proposed markup associated with the federal reconciliation process. It proposes truly devastating cuts to SNAP, $230 billion worth of cuts to federal SNAP programs. The House Republican proposal would call for California to chip in towards the SNAP program 25% of the total costs. It also would impose a number of other cost-shifting burdens on the state to pick up the administrative costs of the program. It limits the consideration of inflation and other adjustments to the food basket, so to speak, that's used to calculate the benefit. It increases the work requirements to more individuals, thereby reducing eligibility for the program, and makes a number of other significant changes associated with the program that would hit California particularly hard. That puts the state in a very difficult position if the state is able to then come up with the funds to try to backfill some of those shifts. But it's basically most of these cuts, in addition to affecting the actual benefit itself, seek to shift the costs from the federal government onto the state. Aside from the Medicaid cuts that we talked about yesterday, which are still more significant in dollar impact to our organization by a very large magnitude, it appears that this is probably the second largest impact that we will likely see as the reconciliation process moves forward. It's very, very concerning to see. Interestingly, it appears that of the different array of social services programs, the House Republicans have chosen to focus almost all of those social services cuts on SNAP. So they've left some of the other funding and programs intact. So I suppose you could say that's good news, but it's odd or interesting to see that they've decided to target so aggressively and so heavily food assistance specifically. So we will, of course, keep folks updated about that. There's no, changes or proposals related to the recommended budget. This is a classic example of what I was discussing yesterday, where this is going to put real pressure on Sacramento on how the state chooses to respond. and what the state then chooses to do if indeed the federal government shifts a quarter of the entire cost of the program onto the state of California. So we will be ready, of course, to advocate at the state level in addition to the federal advocacy on this. But I thought it was important to provide that update in the context of the SSA conversation, given how significant that program is for families in our community.
Yes, Supervisor Young.
Yeah, thank you, James, for that update. It's an assault on all fronts. I was going to ask whether our advocacy at the state level to adjust this ongoing issue of an outdated, out-of-touch eligibility requirement for some necessary services, is that part of our IGR portfolio right now?
Yes, yes, we have advocated for a number of years. You know, the challenge, of course, in that advocacy related to the formulas is it's inherently a zero-sum game, meaning that we're advocating for changes to shift money towards Santa Clara County, and we believe we have a righteous reason to advocate for that because the cost of living here looks different than in other parts of the state, and that should be appropriately reflected in what's happening. But that necessarily puts us not necessarily on the same page with other parts of California if that overall pot is staying the same. So we do engage in that advocacy, but especially if we're not on the same page as Los Angeles County, just the math in the Democratic caucus and the legislature doesn't work in our favor.
And they get a much higher reimbursement for their senior nutrition meals.
Right, so that's a separate, yes, that issue we're going to be pushing hard on. That, I think, is a source-wise issue, and there is absolutely no reason, especially given the higher costs that we face here in Santa Clara County, there is no reason the reimbursement rate for meals should be higher in Los Angeles than here, and not just a little bit, threefold. Mm-hmm. So we will push hard on that. We will continue advocacy on some of these other programs, and we're going to keep our eye on this, on what's happening at the federal level with SNAP. You know, we would hope that the agricultural community across the country, which historically has actually supported food assistance programs for needy families, would be concerned about these cuts. But of course, this is a proposal that they're moving through the Agriculture Committee, so we will see what happens. But this will be, after the Medicaid issue, this will be a major area of our federal advocacy, and then, of course, state.
So, James, my question is now, in light of this new development that you're bringing to the board today, I anticipate more updates. I wish this wasn't the case, but more bombshells in the future. And what I've gleaned is that, we don't talk about the budget again until the budget hearings in June, when the state budget's going to be developing, more changes will be coming. Can there be a standing item on the board agenda for the next 2 meetings between the budget workshops and the budget hearings that will allow us to, in real time, as changes emerge, discuss the budget?
Yeah, I think I can, I'd be happy to provide updates through the county executive report on what's happening. I think that makes sense. There's nothing that we won't be bringing any changes and recommendations associated with the adoption of this budget, given the timelines and given that Sacramento won't even be in a position to respond. So in terms of actual budget impact for our organization, that's something we'll be grappling with probably in the fall. But obviously, from an advocacy standpoint, the time to engage is now. There will be impacts across a whole variety of other programs, but I do think, in terms of focusing on the 2 areas of most significance, it really is, given what we've now seen, it's really Medicaid, number 1, and SNAP, number 2. Those are, I think, the 2 far and away largest categories of impact in the federal process right now.
I hear you on that one. The reason, more background on why I'm asking for this or making this request is that there was an item at the last board meeting that one of my colleagues wanted to get into in the direction the guidance, right, rightfully so, is that that's not agendized for this board agenda, so we're going to wait until the budget workshop. If other items are emerging and advocacy is coming from community, I don't want to wait until the budget hearings to make our request for more information or to actually sunshine discuss it.
Sure, we can, we'll work with county council to make sure that there's an appropriate space for that conversation.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you, James, for the unfortunate update about SNAP, and I'm going to add a couple of sentences on this. So for those who don't know what SNAP is, SNAP stands for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And this is not some new program. This was actually started back in 1939, right after the Great Depression, to fight food insecurity. And this is really not so much a partisan issue, a Democrat Republican issue, because it's talk about feeding our needy of the entire country. And as a matter of fact, many of the areas that's going to be affected, besides people going hungry when this is cut, other people getting hurt that most don't even think of are the farmers, right, who sell the food and also the grocery stores that supply this. So this is going to be a fact that will affect nationwide. In terms of what does $230 billion mean, these are big numbers. For the year of 2023, the expenditure of SNAP for the federal government is about $112 billion, serving 42 million people with the average of receiving about $212 in benefits. Some would only think of SNAP as being just food stamps, but it's more than just that. There's so much going on in this program and so important. I just want to raise why this is something so important and spell it out. Sometimes we use too many acronyms here on this dais. I just want to spell it out for folks to understand what this impact really means and how that's going to hurt our most vulnerable communities, not just our county, but nationwide. Okay, thank you, James, for that. All right, if no further comments on item number 13, we could shift to item number 14, yes? All right, so item number 14 is the overview of the department under the Public Safety and Justice Committee. And I'm just going to go through that same ask for my colleagues if you would like to hear which items under item 14A through G. Supervisor Abicoga.
Yes, I'd like to pull 14A, please.
A for Apple, yes. Supervisor Young?
14E, please.
14E.
That covers both of mine, A and E.
A and E.
C, D, and E.
C, D. Okay, A, C, D, E. And let me see. And I've got, yep, that covers mine as well. So, clerk, just to be clear, we are pulling items 14A, items 14C, 14D, and 14E. Am I correct? Yes?
That's what I've captured as well.
Okay, very good. All right. So before we start, I see our sheriffs are ready to go. How many public speakers do we have?
In chambers, I'm showing 21 cards. And in Zoom, I see 6 hands, so a total of 27, and rising on Zoom. Looks like we're holding at 7 speakers on Zoom.
7 plus 21, so I got 28. All right. All right, so I'm just going to talk to speakers. Normally, I could actually go as low as 30 seconds, but I know folks really want that 1 minute. So I'm going to go ahead and allow the 1 minute. However, if you could shrink it to 30 seconds, I would really appreciate it. Does that work, everybody? That's okay? Now, second thing is, I want to make sure that, no, I'm not going to 30 seconds. I'm saying 1 minute is what I'm giving today. So this is, I'm more generous than I normally would have been able to do, just to allow people to finish their comments. Second thing, I just want to remind people, if you are going to speak, I want you to get the respect so that no clapping and no booing is allowed. So if you would like to, cheer and somebody agree on them, just raise your hand and just shake. All right? That works, everybody? Good. All right, thank you very much. All right, let's go ahead and do the in-chamber speaker first. Thank you.
Okay, I'll begin with calling the first batch of names. You can make a line in the aisle and approach the podium in any order as I call your name. I have Sam Brown, Marissa Avila, Shelley Swan, Mark Astiord, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that, Yesenia Velasquez, Paul Marquez, Julian Delgado, Mario Guerrero, Jimmy, Michael, William Couch Jr., and Neil Chand. We'll pause there. Please approach the podium. As stated by the chair, you'll be given 1 minute.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Go ahead, please speak. Yes, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Shelley Swan with Carry the Vision. We are living in extremely challenging times, and funding streams are increasingly fragile. Yet, despite this, the wisdom in this room and in our communities is overflowing. That wisdom holds the recipe for a new way forward. The funding must be placed into the hands of those who are closest to the harm, remove the barriers that the system has in place that do not work, and perpetuate the wheel of dysfunction. Transfer those funds directly to the community service providers. These are the people who are able to stabilize those families and reduce additional generational trauma. You have hit the jackpot. You have the winning lottery ticket. All that it needs is to be invested in. Thank you.
Hello. The day I stepped through the doors of Carry the Vision, I had no hope. I had lost faith in my community and the possibility of change, and even in myself. But something happened that day. I walked in with a desire to share my experiences that have become solutions in a broken system. As I spoke them out loud, I felt it. This can change our world. For the first time, I was truly heard. The changes in my life since then have been nothing short of a miracle. Today, I stand out with a new outlook on life, something I haven't had in over 20 years. And if this is taken away, this would be a tragedy not just for me, but for my friends and loved ones, those who I've been able to uplift and inspire through the short but powerful journey of healing. This matters. Carry the Vision didn't just help me survive, it helped me to start a new life again. My name is Marisa Avila, Program Assistant of Carry the Vision.
Hello, my name is Sam Brown with Pit Stop and also Carry the Vision. About the funding, if there's a funding cut, a lot of the people will not be able to get certain things like food and supplies and things like that. It helped me to, each day I take out food to the unhoused population. And also, I get to see the success stories, the victory stories. If the funding goes against all that, then there won't be any of the victory stories or anything like that. Once again, thank you.
Hello, dear board members, members of the board. My name is Yesenia Velasquez. I'm a reentry specialist with Breakout Prison Outreach and a proud member of the Community Advisory Board with our justice system. My journey through incarceration began at the age of 12. I have since dedicated my life to breaking the cycle that continues to impact so many individuals and families in our community. I'm writing to strongly oppose the proposed reduction in AB 109 reentry contract funding outlined in item 14 today. AB 109 was established to shift public safety strategies towards rehabilitation and reintegration, not continued punishment. Community-based reentry services such as housing assistance, job support and mental health care, and substance use treatments are the foundation of that mission. These programs are not just services, they are lifelines. Yet recent data shows that 74% of AB 109 funds go to law enforcement, while only 26% support community organization. This is deeply concerning, and especially when jail populations and probation caseloads have declined significantly over the past decade.
Yes, if you cannot finish the statement, you could please give it to our clerk and we'll add it to the record. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm
Good
Mark
afternoon.
Ashford, the chair of the Community Advisory Board for Reentry. I spent a lot of time in prison, and we learned how to put our differences aside and unite. We learned how to organize in the most isolated and under-resourced conditions. We became creative, we became innovative, we became resourceful. We spoke to the press, we held hunger strikes. We learned how to accomplish the impossible with nothing. And that's why when I look at our county budget today, I'm confused. I see millions of dollars allocated to programs, and yet so little of that money actually makes it into the hands, homes, and streets of the people who need it. So I ask you, let's trust the wisdom in this room. Let us reduce overhead and increase the access to the people in the uncertain times. And I also ask you to give it possible for all those that are out there with their boots in the ground to continue funding them. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Paul Marquez. I'm from Breakout Prison Outreach. I'm a case manager. On behalf of my boss, David Morez, who's not here today, I just want to speak what he has to say. Today, I'm here to urge the county to reconsider the proposed budget to cuts in the faith-based services that is vital to individuals reentering society after incarceration. As an former incarcerated individual, a personally understanding the immense challenges and struggles of people upon facing their release. Cutting these essential services will not just only negatively impact the individuals seeking support, but also will have severe repercussions for the families and the communities at large, particularly concerning public safety. When we access necessary resources diminish, we risk the hindrance of successful reintegration of the individuals who can lead to increased recidivism and strain on the community. In addition, I understand that the community plans to establish a late-night resource center. While this is intensive, as well-intentioned, it may increase the flow of individuals seeking support, placing further restraint on our service providers.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call a few more names, and as stated by the chair, if you have written comments you prepared and you would like to submit into record, please leave it right there by that arrow when you're done. Oh, no, I'm going to read some more names. I'm sorry. Eugene, Sarah Salzar, we have Angelina Ramos, Margarita Aguilar, Crystal Perez, Caressa Pardo, Sean Allen, and we'll pause there. You may begin whenever you're ready.
Please.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Julian Delgadillo. I am a reentry specialist with the Good Samaritan Reentry Project Reentry Center, and I am also a member of the Community Advisory Board. And not only am I a reentry specialist, but I have also been incarcerated myself. I have experienced many of the challenges that the transition brings forth, and I'm here to express my support in having the restoration of full funding of all 4 faith-based centers in Santa Clara County. Our main focus is to assist our clients to become self-sufficient and to meet their most basic needs, such as housing, food, clothing, so that they can obtain gainful employment, reunite with their families, and discharge from probation or parole. As the county is concerned about the safety of our community and reducing recidivism, cutting our budget and reducing essential service navigation and employment programs will make it more difficult for those wanting to change and easier to resort back to antisocial.
Thank you. Yeah, anything you cannot finish, you could actually drop off the your note to the clerk. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Mario Guerra, and I was once a former inmate at Elmwood facility. Upon my release last year, I made contact with Clara Division. I was attending men's healing circles. Since then, I've become a circle keeper, and my circle is at the Gilroy Reentry Center. And I'm just saying that these are 2 main arteries in the community at Gilroy, and the budget cuts, if you were to take those 2 away, amongst all the other faith-based workers that work there, it'd be too vital. It'd be too vital. If you think the seriousness of the crime rate and the homelessness is bad now, it'd be even worse if you take away these 2 main arteries. So I just ask that you guys take consideration when you think about these cuts, if some way, somehow make things work. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Jimmy Prado, Program Manager, Care Division, and also a Community Advisory Board member. I'm just here just to advocate in regards to the possibility of budget cuts to our programs. That also includes the reentry program. These services are real vital and real important to the men and women coming out of incarceration that are transitioning back into the community. You know, without these services, right, where would they go, right? Most likely going back to their old behaviors, right? So, but by having these programs, it kind of like guides them back, right, to learn how to become productive members of society, right? And so it's very vital, and please take into consideration of not cutting any of these programs, right? Because these are, you know, for the community, right? You know, to make it a safer place, right? For, you know, for all of us. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael. I'm an alcoholic addict, and I almost went back to my old ways if it wasn't for this. I got 6 years and 7 months, and I was almost there to commit suicide. My brother died from this disease, and I couldn't handle it, and these people let me cry on their shoulder when I had nowhere to go. And I just don't want you to close this program, because if there's somebody like that got help, I'm going to continue my program and my recovery, and I want somebody that needs the same help as me to find this circle too, because it worked. And I'm part of the community, and I'm a better person. I'm going to continue being like that because it works. Thank you.
Hey, how you guys doing? My name is William Couch. I'm a member of the Community Advisory Board here in Santa Clara County. You know, I've given probably more than half my life to incarceration, you know, because of choices that I made. You know, for the last 12 years, I've been doing great work here in the community, you know, and since 2019, I've been a board member. You know, how I got here is the resources, you know, here in the county. You know, if it wasn't for the resources and people that, you know, paved the way, you know, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at amongst the support for my family, you know, my children, things like that. You know, we looked at the budget and, you know, we're in a deficit, you know, we're getting less, you know, in reality, you know, our population actually needs an increase, you know what I mean? Because if it's not for the resources, the people that are doing the footwork, you know, it just ain't gonna work, you know? So I'm here to advocate because I'm in a place today where I can do that, you know, for my population, you know? It doesn't matter how much work, you know, how far I've come, you know, I'm still part of the population, and resources is a major factor of,
Good afternoon. My name is Neil Chan. I serve as a board member of the Santa Clara County Community Advisory Board. I want to take this opportunity to convey my concerns regarding the proposal budget for fiscal year of 2025 and 26. I believe it is of utmost importance to revisit the $1.4 million allocations from the prior budget, which specifically impacts the reentry population and contracts related to the AB 109 contract. The strategic allocations of financial resources is vital in facilitating the rehabilitation process for individuals reintegrating into society after incarceration. By fostering a smoother transition, we can play a pivotal role in reducing recidivism rate in Santa Clara County. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Eugene Santillan. I serve proudly as a principal for Santa Clara County Office of Education's Core and Community School programs for the northern part of the county. In collaboration with Javier and the team at Reentry Services, we created for the first, one of the first in the nation's high school diploma program at Reentry Services. We graduate about 15 adults every year. Last year, we graduated a mother-son combo. The mom needed a full year of high school. The son only needed one class, and they got to walk together and get a real diploma. It's not a GED. Last Friday, we graduated 18 adults, and I am so proud to be at those graduations. It costs the county $84,000 a year to detain one person. These students have a 43% less likelihood of being detained again. So we are really saving the county money when we put the diplomas in the hands of these people. And I encourage you, for all the reasons I have here listed, to please keep funding this program.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Salazar. I'm a reentry specialist with the Good Samaritan Project, serving reentry clients in Gilroy, Morgan Hill, and San Martin. I am also the chair for the Community Advisory Board in South County. Budget cuts to essential reentry services will create further hardships to clients in an already under-resourced area for the county. My clients face the highest barriers. They've served long sentences, are repeated offenders, and have histories with trauma, addiction, and gang involvement. Navigation through a community with no transitional housing options, limited job placement assistance, inadequate substance use treatment, and insufficient mental health services makes it difficult for us as case managers to go ahead and find resources. History has proven that the expected clients to secure housing, find a job, and maintain sobriety in a place where limited resources are unrealistic. Without essential reentry services, our South County clients will feel they have no choice. Thank you.
I'll call the remaining, thank you. I'll call the remaining few names we have left, Melissa Ramirez and Emika, in any order, please. Thank you.
Crystal Perez from the Community Advisory Chair. As someone with live experience and a direct beneficiary community based nonprofit services, I can personally speak to the critical roles these organizations play in supporting individuals reentering society. CBOs provide vital services such as housing support, job training, mental health care, and mentorship that helps people rebuild their lives after incarceration. These services don't just change individuals' lives, they strengthen families, reduce recidivism, and improve community safety and stability. Continuing funding is essential to sustain this work. Without it, many of us would be left without the tools to support needed to successfully reintegrate. I strongly urge decision makers to consider any reductions in funding. Investing in CBOs is investing in people and second chances and a stronger, more equitable community for all. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Margarita Aguilar, and I'm a reentry specialist with the Never Give Up Service Navigation Program under Breakout Prison Outreach. I am also a member of the South County Community Advisory Board. I serve clients out of the South County Reentry Office in Gilroy, focusing specifically on individuals from the South County area who are justice involved and working to rebuild their lives. The work I do is essential. I provide local tailored resources to individuals who often feel forgotten or overlooked. These resources are while limited, are critical in helping clients secure housing, find employment, access mental health or substance use support, and ultimately reintegrate into society with dignity. But beyond services, I offer encouragement, consistency, and hope. And I help plant the seed of change and guide individuals through one of the most challenging transitions of their lives. By supporting the population, we are not only giving them a second chance, but we are also directly contributing to public safety and stronger communities. When people have access to support and stability, they are more likely to become productive citizens who give back rather than return to the system.
Hello, my name is Angelina Ramos. I'm one of the Reentry Fellowship Project Coordinators with the Good Samaritan Project, serving clients in North County as well as Gilroy, Morgan Hill, San Martin. I'm also a member of South County Community Advisory Board. The fellowship is working effectively to support the children with justice-involved parent, guardian, or primary caregiver. We focus on unmet needs, assessing, addressing the needs not covered by other services such as emotional support, educational assistance, social activities. Collaborating with community organizations can help fill in these gaps. We focus on family reunification with the parent and child, strengthening their support networks, reducing intergenerational incarceration, alleviating trauma experienced by children, improving their mental health. In short terms, family bonding between the child and their justice-involved parent is essential for their emotional, social, physical well-being. Without these essential services for reentry services, thank you.
Hi, my name is Carissa, and I stand before you as a participant in the Good Samaritan Project as someone who was formerly incarcerated. Programs like this are life-changing and they're life-saving. As a single mom, I carry the weight of my past, financial strain, and the pressure to give my son a better life. They offer support, knowledge, resources, and guidance in life after prison. The financial help that they offer to someone like me, it means everything. For example, when I don't have the budget to keep up with my fast-growing toddler, the Good Samaritan Project is always there to help me. This is not just an investment in people like me, it's an investment in our children and in breaking cycles that were never meant to continue. So please continue to support the Good Samaritan Project, because when you support this program, you're not just helping people like us rebuild our lives, you're also giving our children a chance to grow up with stability and hope. Thank you.
Sean Allen, President, NAACP. We are here today to demand accurate reporting of the budgets of the Sheriff's Office and Department of Corrections. Our goal is to ensure accountability and protections for all individuals who are incarcerated regardless of their charges. In 1996, the county placed the Department of Corrections under probation, a decision the courts ruled was beyond the county's powers. The chief probation officer, the sheriff, and the chief of corrections are established by legislation, not by the county. In 1999, the legislation amended Penal Code 831.5 to clarify that custodial officers of this county are not employees of or under the authority of the sheriff, yet the county and the sheriff ignore that at the taxpayer's expense. This county has a troubling history of failure in jail management, with recurring issues that led to the sheriff's office being removed from the responsibility, resulting in systemic abuse, especially against brown and black communities. Under what authority does these decisions continue, and why have the local ballot measures been are enacted in violation of the law? The sheriff's office slogan should be "led by white supremacists since 1850." Thank you.
No, over here. By the podium, yes.
Okay, my bad, sorry.
Yes, there you go.
All right. My name is Emeka Ibe Abuchi. I'm the program manager here at Mission Possible Reentry Center here in San Jose, California. I'm here to just speak of the importance of our programs. These reentry programs are really vital to reducing recidivism and also enabling individuals to come out of the long-term oppression that people have faced by all minorities in this country. The budget and the funds that are here, they support the staff. That's very vital, and the heartbeat and the front line of reentry services. It's very important that these people are connected to these resources and that they have the right people in front of them who honestly care to make the right decisions and guide them in the paths that they've never been guided in. It is very vital that our funding be in place because, honestly, I can say for a lot of individuals, this country has let them down, and Santa Clara County, if we want to have ourselves at a high standard of excellence, we need to be a footprint in a new roadmap. Thank you.
I had one remaining card in chambers. I believe the speaker may have left, but I'm just going to check Melissa. Is Melissa Ramirez? She's going? Okay. So we'll move to our Zoom speakers. Our first speaker is Ben. Please accept the unmute. You'll be given 1 minute.
Yes, hello. You know, I wanted to let you guys know that the district attorney's office is actually spending money to cover up the sexual abuse of children, as well as severe physical assaults against parents who don't want their children raped. I know that it sounds crazy. I'd like you guys to please Google D.A. Rosen petition, and within the top 5 results should be something about sex trafficking. Our district, the only person who was willing to help me was Daniel Chung, and he got fired a couple of weeks after he indicated that he was going to help. And now we're paying him to sit at home, and we're paying for the lawsuit that he brought against the county. It's just terrible that law enforcement that really wants to protect the community gets treated like that. It's terrible that D.A. Rosen is helping to conceal the sexual abuse of my kids.
The next speaker is a user by the name SVCN1. Please accept the unmute.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors. My name is Angel Liano, speaking on behalf of the Silicon Valley Council of Nonprofits. I'm also a member of the Real Coalition. While we recognize that the county is facing a difficult funding landscape this year, given the AB 109 structural deficit, SVCN is deeply concerned about the cuts to reentry services. The administration has committed to minimizing the jail population through incarceration alternatives and prevention, but by divesting from reentry as the county designs its new jail, we let residents fall back into the carceral system and inflate the perceived need for jail beds. SVCN urges the board and administration to be extremely careful in taking reentry money given the county's mission to promote ATI. Otherwise, we risk expanding investment in incarceration down the line, which is an extremely difficult process to reverse. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jessica. Jessica, please accept the unmute. You'll be given a minute.
Good afternoon, President Lee and members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Jessica Blitchok, and I am a member of the Real Coalition and a volunteer leader for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. Community violence prevention is a very important issue to me, especially gun violence prevention. I want to thank the Board of Supervisors for the decision in February to move forward with creating an Office of Violence Prevention, which would help coordinate the county's violence prevention efforts and increase the use of primary violence prevention strategies using a public health approach. But I didn't see any mention of this office or the Community Violence Prevention Fund in the proposed budget. And now is the time to activate the county's violence prevention strategic plan as presented in February. I'm respectfully urging the board to allocate a minimum of $200,000 to fund the Office of Violence Prevention in its first year. Thank you so much.
Thank you. The next speaker in the queue is Tyrone and Alicia. A user by the name Tyrone and Alicia, please accept the unmute.
Yes, this is Dr. Tyrone Party, Senior Pastor, CEO of Bay Area Maranatha Christian Center Mission Possible. I'd like to raise a concern regarding the proposed cuts to AB 109, faith-based reentry services in Santa Clara. To my knowledge, these vital services have not seen any budget increase over the past 2-3 years, despite ongoing inflation and rising costs of living that affect both the staff who provide these services and the vulnerable populations who rely on them. Given this context, I respectfully ask whether the board has fully considered the compounded impact of sustained underfunding in previous years alongside the current proposed reduction. What may appear as a single-year cut is, in effect, the culmination of multiple years of stagnant support in the face of increasing needs. Could someone from the board clarify whether the history of level funding and the absence of cost of living adjustments was part of the discussion when proposing next year's reduction?
Thank you for your comments. Anne Marie McCauley is next. Please accept the unmute.
My name is Anne Marie McCauley, and I am a resident of Gilroy and South County representative of Mothers Against Drug Addiction and Deaths. Client-based services provided by organizations like Carry the Vision give citizens direct services without the bloated administrative costs associated with county programs. The boots-on-the-ground organizations not only give direct services, but they employ people who participated in the programs, giving them credibility and hope to those who feel their situation is hopeless. One of the biggest complaints of people seeking mental health support is the lack of qualified service providers. It's proven that those with lived experience have a message that resonates with clients, establishes trust, and long-term relationships that are voluntary, not forced. With the reduction of funding, please consider the organizations like Carry the Vision that can do more with less and support not just clients, but staff as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Anthony Ortiz. Please accept the unmute. You have 1 minute.
Good afternoon. My name is Anthony Ortiz Jr., and I'm with Breakout Prison Outreach. I'm an administrator there. The faith-based collaborative centers have a track record going back to 2012 regarding services that started when the public safety realignment began. Over the years, the clientele that we serve started to help those that were some of the highest risks throughout the whole county that impacted county communities from Mentlo Park all the way down to Gilroy. These are the types of clients that impact public safety, recidivism rates, and violent crime rates. So one thing you need to know about the faith-based community is they're very unique in how they provide their services, and that's what made them successful. So please do not cut funds and restore full funding. Thank you.
Thank you. And we did have a speaker whose hand was raised at the close of the queue, who I think we might have lost but has since come back. Paul Soto, do you still wish to speak on this item? If you do, please accept the unmute. Okay, I think we might have lost them again. All right, I believe that concludes our public speakers for this item.
Thank you very much. Okay, so first of all, I see our sheriffs here, and we have item 4, A, C, D, E. And Sheriff, do you have anything you would like to start first before we go into the questions?
No, you can go right in. I apologize. We came up maybe prematurely. We were just eager and ready to go, so I apologize.
It's good. You always be ready, right? Yes. All right, let's see. All my colleagues, the Supervisor Ellenberg, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff and Undersheriff and team for being here today. I am going to highlight, it's a very small dollar amount, but I want to make hopefully a larger point by highlighting a request from the Restorative Services Division for $300,000 to fund in-custody parenting programs that wasn't included in the recommended budget. There are a number of studies that have proven that when we support incarcerated parents in maintaining positive relationships with their children, we reduce recidivism rates for that parent and also work to break generational cycles of incarceration by reducing the likelihood that the child has future justice engagement. I just want to keep this and similar programs top of mind so that as soon as there is more, we are ready to do more. Prevention must remain a county priority despite the fiscal reality that we're currently facing, whether we're talking about in-custody services or the Guaranteed Income Program for justice-involved individuals, which, by the way, is one of the 4 guaranteed income programs I look forward to discussing in more detail when an update comes to the board, and I will request that update during item 16. Prevention is a powerful tool that impacts our county as an organization and results in better outcomes in the community. So if we are not able to find $300,000 now, I want assurance that when funding does become available, that funding for in-custody parenting programs will be prioritized. I got a nod from Supervisor Lee, so I will hold you to that. He will be on you for the parenting programs. And thank you very much. I really appreciate the work that your office is doing. Sheriff Johnson, the transformations are so numerous across your department since you have been in this office, and I just want to commend you on your leadership and commend the deputy sheriffs and correctional officers and folks that you work with for truly partnering with us to create a system where everyone is safe and everyone has better options.
Thank you.
That was just on A.
Okay.
Right? Do you want my E as well?
Oh, no. Let's do A
Just
first.
A.
I'm going to
Okay.
go with
Gotcha.
Supervisor Abikoga, please.
Thank you, President Lee, and thank you so much, Sheriff, for being here. I know you know that my community in District 5, we've had quite a bit of interest regarding the ALPR, the Automated License Plate Reader Program, and that's the main request that I received from my constituents in District 5. And so I would like to ask, and I believe there was a pilot program that was approved by this board, and again, it's about being good on our commitments that we've made. And so I would like to request that administration work with the Sheriff's Office to report back to the board on the use of the ALPR PRs in the unincorporated west side of the county, which is many of the communities in District 5. I believe the community outreach part of the program has been completed. We were just at a neighborhood meeting that we were both there with a lot of the neighbors. They're just really anxious to get this program going. The other cities in the vicinity have, their cities have approved the ALPRs, and I know that it really makes a difference to have that full connected system. And so with that, I would like to request the information about the number of cameras needed, locations, identified funding sources to move this pilot program forward. If you have any comments, that would be great.
We can certainly work with the Sheriff's Office on that.
Yeah, and just for the broader audience, we are currently working on that. And just for clarification, yes, the pilot was approved. There are no ALPRs in the unincorporated area as of yet, but we can come back to you with our suggestion, our recommendation on the number of cameras that we would recommend and the strategic placement of those cameras.
And funding source opportunities
And funding
too.
would definitely help, yes.
Great, thank you.
Yes, we're still on 14A. Yes, Vice President, go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm wondering about, I asked for an after-action report regarding the death of the inmate earlier this year. And so this is, I think, for me, the right time to ask you about staffing. I haven't seen the report. We have not received it. And so in anticipation of the report, I'm asking you to let us know if we will find a staffing issue in the report and how you are planning to address it during the budget.
Yeah, we can definitely come back to you. We will come back to you with the after-action report, but we will also make sure that we include staffing and some of the things we've recently done. As you may be aware, I think I addressed either this group or Public Safety Justice on the Elmwood Camp Realignment Initiative. So we've moved several hundred individuals off of the camp, the barracks, into another module on the facility. And that's been about 2 months now, I think, since we've done that. It's been going very well, and that does impact the staffing in somewhat a positive, net neutral way, but we have fewer people at the Elmwood Camp facility right now and more in the modules, but we redirected the staffing to have that. And again, we've had some very positive success, and we'll include that in the report as well.
I think I was supposed to have a tour, and it began to rain, and then I got it canceled, or somebody canceled it. I don't know if it was us or you or.
Yeah, well, we work rain or shine, so I'd be surprised if it was us.
Yeah.
We're more than willing to take you through day or night, rain or shine, but we'll
Listen,
make sure we reschedule that.
Yes, I look forward to it. Thank you. Okay, so are you, when do you plan to move forward with the after-action report?
Well, I think a lot of that still has to do with the investigation side. We still haven't received our report from the medical examiner. So before we do that, we're probably kind of at a standstill so we can have more of a comprehensive. If you're just looking for after action regarding the staffing, that's a piece we can move forward with. If you're looking for an after action really addressing the totality of the incident.
I think for right now, because we are talking about budget, it is budget related. So yes, the staffing anticipated, any changes?
We can get that probably before the June. Yeah.
Perfect.
And I think I just misspoke, and I apologize. I do think we have the report for that particular incident from the medical examiner. I was crossing that with another incident we had, so.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Yes, I do have a couple of questions for the 14A. So in addition to what Supervisor Ellenberg's request earlier, I would like to also have us prioritize adding the 3 FTE rehab officer positions requested by the Restorative Services Division as well. Number one. Second is, I'm concerned about the recommendations to extend the 2 office specialist position rather than making those positions permanent. The reason being that we have been told that the recruitment of these positions have been quite challenging due to the fact that it's a temporary status and people, of course, wanted to work in a permanent position. So my question here is, what would be the budget impact if we are trying to make these positions permanent?
It shifts the cost from a one-time cost to an ongoing cost. So we would need to identify an ongoing reduction to balance. So that's the reason it was an extension of the current position. Also, those positions are tied to the implementation of the new system. And so the expectation is that once the new system is up and running, that those positions should not be needed on an ongoing basis.
Okay. If possible, do you think you can give us maybe a report off agenda of more information about this issue? In terms of ongoing, yeah, thank you so much. All right, and I think that's all I have. And so let's go move to the next. Oh, next item, which is item 14C, which is the Office of Public Defender. Thank you, Sheriffs. I believe this was pulled by Vice President Arenas. You would like to start on this one?
Sorry. Yes, thank you. I wanted to ask, and I know we have an off-agenda report, but I wanted to make sure that I have it as part of this conversation, and this is Prop 36, and I appreciate, like I said, the off-agenda report, but what I'm wondering is what you see currently in terms of the impact. I know it's just been like, I think, a month ago, but you're boots on the ground, and you can see folks coming in. What does it look like? What's the impact?
Thank you for that question, Supervisor Arenas. I think the general approach of requesting more data is kind of consistent with our view. I think we're still trying to sort out initial trends. But I do think we are able to identify some basic trends based on what we saw as of the implementation date of the statute, which was December 18th, 2024. So, we're closing in on 5 months. What we have already seen is we're on track for approximately 800 or more new felonies charged under Prop 36 this coming calendar year, and about 300 misdemeanors. The felonies are new in that they could not have been charged as felonies in prior years, and of course, that does have some implication for us in terms of general workload. I could make a quick comment or two about detention rates, what we have seen at least on the arraignment calendar at the Hall of Justice. We are seeing, and I believe off the top of my head, my recollection is about 75% or more of the individuals are arriving in custody. About a third are remaining in custody after the arraignment appearance. So we know, somewhere around 2/3 or more are arriving with at least 2 to 5 days of in custody time, which is unlikely they would have received or been in custody prior to Prop 36. Certainly now about a third are remaining in custody after arraignment. And then I can share just a few observations about ethnic and demographic breakdowns. We are seeing, and this is really consistent, and I think it's information I'd shared when I was before the board in the past, but we are seeing about, if I recall correctly, approximately about 40% of the clients facing either misdemeanor or felony Prop 36 charges are Latinx. I want to say approximately 17% are Caucasian. I believe approximately 16% are African American, and then the remaining would fall under other BIPOC categories. So those are just some general trends we are seeing. In particular, the demographics, unfortunately, is fairly consistent with what we see broadly in the criminal legal arena anyways.
And do you see, and thank you for the breakdown on the ethnicity, and great memory. Do you happen to have anything for age? What is that you typically get breaking down into?
I do not have that age at this time. It's something we could go back and take a look at our case management system. Some of it depends on how the information is logged, whether it's structured data or unstructured data in our system. But I'm happy to take a look at that and provide some sort of off-agenda report back as to whether we can pull that information.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I would appreciate an off-agenda report on this as it progresses. The year progresses, and obviously it sounds like the cases are progressing as well, and that we're finding 1/3 remaining under incarcerated is an impact to our jails that are already impacted. But then it also obviously creates a different pathway for those folks. And so I would love to learn what those age ranges are. And I know this is not connected to you here specifically, but later we're going to talk about the criminal justice system-wide costs and the AB 109 recommended changes throughout the whole system, which you know I am opposing, as well as I want to make sure that we are not setting ourselves and our community up to have more difficulty in trying to get a job. I mean, we've heard from speakers say what a graduating from high school, what door that really opens, right? And how many doors are closing because folks are getting incarcerated who normally wouldn't, except because Prop 36 is prompting that. So I just want to keep a really close eye on this. And like I said, I just don't know what the policy perspective is of the board. Collectively, we have made decisions about making sure we have an Office of Violence Prevention, and then we make sure that we are, you know, I heard you advocate, President Lee, for programming for incarcerated parents. Reentry is also, I know, very near and dear to you, and yet we're seeing for the very first time, this is not set in stone, but I think it's an opportunity for us collectively as a board to figure out what's the direction of this system, and what is the impact in the places that we are going to make changes to, right? And AB 109, while I know that is having a direct impact, doesn't mean that we decrease the programming at a higher rate than any other program is getting impacted. And so we have to right-size the impact and right-size the cuts, especially knowing that we are having more folks coming in. And I don't know who the folks are, right? I don't know if, I mean, obviously you told me the breakdown of the ethnicity, but I don't know what the age range is. And I think that's also really important, because if we are, if they're for younger folks and the programs that we are proposing to cut are for younger folks, somehow we are not aligning our policies as a board. So, you know, I'm asking my colleagues to think about how it is that we are going to decide the cuts that are going to be made. And I know some of them have to be very precise, some of them are imposed on us, but not all of them are coming from our policy decisions. These are suggested cuts. And I think until we actually decide, I'm going to advocate to make sure that AB 109 and really the criminal justice system-wide isn't impacted in the way that I think is going to be impacted, especially with 800 more felonies and misdemeanors by the end of the year. Okay, so I'm going to move off of that subject, but I'm going to move into pretrial services. Tell me the impact.
The pre-trials, that's 14D? That'll be
No,
next.
it's under
Oh,
Office
see, I'm
of
sorry.
Public
Okay,
Defender.
Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. So you were actually getting some additional positions for the pretrial services, is that?
Pretrial services is a different department, Supervisor. We can call them up to speak to.
Oh, okay. Well, here it has pretrial services expansion grant to fully reimburse 2 existing positions.
Supervisor Reynes, may I ask our ASM Hong Kao to help explain that particular
Sure,
item?
thank you.
Under the, good afternoon, Supervisor. Under the pre-trial services expansion grant, the Office of the Public Defender added 2 positions that are funded and receive reimbursement from the Office of Pretrial Services.
I see. And so you're using that as a source of fund?
That's correct. So there's an adjustment as a part of the recommended budget.
And the paralegal and the attorney are working under what?
This is part of how we basically responded last year, Supervisor Reynes, to our reduction in our arraignment and pre-arraignment services and our PAR team, is we've used some of those fundings or some of that funding to help backfill and support those particular positions. It's basically part of our bridge strategy in how we addressed the negative appropriation last year.
Got it. Okay. All right. Those were my questions. Thank you.
Supervisor Reynes, can I briefly respond to an issue you raised, which is, and I want to, in the spirit of full disclosure, when we've discussed Prop 36, is make sure that I emphasize it's quite a nuanced question, and I don't want to necessarily oversimplify it. There will be reasons why, for instance, some individuals may have already been in the system as a result of other cases and other charging. That, in essence, could impact the number of cases we have, or at least the number of clients we have, where the cases could increase, but the number of clients may not. And simultaneously, I think that issue is raised in the context of detention. How does Prop 36 impact the detention rates of individuals is somewhat a nuanced question. So I don't want to be misleading, and I don't necessarily want to be an alarmist when I raise these issues about workload and trends. I think what it really invites is a deeper conversation. And I would say similarly, finally, in the category of demographics, we are learning, and I think I've shared before, that with our work with the computational scientists and as we've worked on Racial Justice Act litigation, that there is a lot of nuance into how to interpret and how to properly apply scientific theory to the statistics. So I just want to kind of contextualize my earlier comments and not be misleading to the board when I'm speaking to you all.
No, I appreciate that, but we don't need scientific theory to tell us who's in our jails and who's being impacted or who's not graduating or who needs expungements or who's dying in our jails. So you're not alarming me. I'm already alarmed. I'm alarmed that there are so many Latino young boys and men who have a straight path into our justice system. And if we don't continue to disrupt, if we don't do anything different, yet there's legislation that is doing something different, and we don't respond, we don't have a response, then a year later, 2 years later, we're going to find ourselves trying to create something to actually address something that we could have done from the beginning. But those lives then are forever changed, right? I mean, we already heard it from so many of the folks who came in and testified. So no, you're not alarming me. I'm already alarmed. Let me tell you, I've been telling my colleagues that there is a huge failure of Latino boys and men, and Prop 36 is just something, it's the cherry on top. So absolutely not. You're not doing that at all.
No, and I think the recent Latino health assessment speaks to this exact issue. Criminal justice is simply one domain of success that evidences this issue that you're speaking to.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Now we're moving to 14D for DOG, which is the Office of Pretrial Services. And I believe this also being pulled by you, Vice President Arenas.
So sorry, let me find my notes. I was getting so worked up. My notes out of order now. Okay. All right, so we have, listen, I was just going to talk about the AB 109 deficit piece. I know you're deleting 3 pretrial service officers and reducing their services and supplies budget. And I know this is an effort system-wide. Oh, where did Damien go? Pretrial services, or whoever wants to answer. James, you want to answer?
Pretrial services.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But we can.
Oh, here we go.
But my suggestion is, if your question's on the AB 109 piece, the item E is, I think we can talk about it globally, because it really is.
Okay,
It's
then.
an issue that impacts a whole bunch of departments.
Perfect. I was going to go letter by letter, but I won't do it. I'll wait until E. Okay.
Which I think might be next then.
Okay, all right, let's move to item number E, 14E, which is the criminal justice system-wide cost.
If I could
Yeah,
just
James,
give a
please.
kind of overview on AB 109 situation before we get into the kind of the specific questions. Our county has used AB 109. So AB 109 funding comes with the realignment. It comes from the state in the form of basically an allocation of state sales tax revenues. We as a county have been very aggressive in the use of AB 109 in expanding services that we've provided, including some really groundbreaking services such as our reentry services. Our AB 109 funding allocation, because it's dependent on this state sales tax formula, has not been growing at a pace commensurate with our cost increases, both our staffing cost increases and our contractor cost increases over the years. And it's gotten to a position where in the last few years we've actually been utilizing and drawing down fund balances in the AB 109 fund to the point where we now have to tackle the structural deficit in AB 109 because we're anticipating exhausting those funds over the next fiscal year or 2. So this is part of a multi-year plan. This budget doesn't propose to bring AB 109 fully in structural balance. I want the board to be aware of that. It's still imbalanced, but is part of a multi-year set of recommendations to try to address the fact that we have this imbalance in AB 109 funding. This isn't the only type of allocation where we're facing these kinds of challenges. We talked yesterday about behavioral health, where we're similarly seeing challenges with 2011 realignment, and we will see some significant challenges with MHSA funding, especially in the state shift to change those allocations. But one of those types of funding streams is AB 109, and we have been aggressive in utilization. What the approach that we've tried to take here in addressing this imbalance is to both look at Object 1 and Object 2 expenses. On the Object 1 side, that's our staffing. We've proposed cutting a series of vacant positions across a number of departments, looking in particular at which vacancies were oldest, and in a few places did indeed backfill with general fund support or other funding support. For example, an attorney position in the public defender's office that was preserved by basically shifting to general fund support. That was in the public defender part of the budget. And for example, at the library district, shifting funding for a position off onto the library, which is a special fund. And so we did make efforts to do backfill there. We also looked on the Object 2 side at underutilized expenditures to the greatest extent possible, and then some contract-related reductions in addition to those 12 FTE that I just mentioned. The I do think that we need to look very carefully at exactly what contracts are under consideration for some of the Object 2 related reductions. But I did want to just provide the broader overview because the AB 109 funding situation is one that is going to not just be resolved even with these actions, but is going to continue in the future as that revenue stream doesn't keep pace with our growth in costs. And where we're in a situation where we don't have general fund available such that anything we do backfill necessitates a cut in some other general fund. One of our largest areas of general fund expenditure is actually the criminal justice system. And so one of the challenges is for many of these departments, if you think about, take the sheriff's office, for example, or the custody bureau, the rest of the department is basically funded with general fund as well. So that makes things challenging too. But of course, we recognize and support these services and continue to look for opportunities to mitigate impacts associated with AB 109, which is one reason we looked specifically at those oldest vacancies for the position reductions that you see across a number of departments. The last thing I would just say on this AB 109, along with some of the other state funding streams, is, I think there's an important role that we should be trying to partner with CSAC to address, which is that overall in aggregate, because the sales tax growth formulas move very slowly, they're not really in a position to keep pace with overall expenditure. And so over time, and we're now many years, more than a decade and a half almost out from the inception of AB 109, that gap is, I think, going to increasingly be felt in different organizations. Now, for our organization, we did, a lot of counties really just put all this money in kind of core criminal justice services, and so, we had it spread among many, many other departments, and so those impacts show up in many other places than in some counties. But I did want to just note kind of that overall context, and also just say kind of at high level, I know there have been a couple questions today about, where are we kind of prioritizing allocation of scarce general fund resources? The hospital system, which of course has received significant general fund contribution, actually is having that contribution go down in this year's budget in real dollar amounts, which of course on a percentage basis represents a very significant reduction. And so where we have been instead backfilling is in places like the supportive housing system that the board will hear about in a minute, and in these other places where, as I mentioned, there are a few positions for NAB 109 and elsewhere kind of throughout the county organization. So in any event, I know we heard a lot of public comment about the Object 2 related pieces here. I do think it's something that we need to look at very carefully, exactly what items might be at issue. But I do think that overall context is just something that needed to be shared.
Okay, I see all the lights have gone on here. Who wants to go first? Supervisor Young, you want to go from this way? Go ahead.
Sure. Following your direction, President.
Sure. Please, go ahead.
So is there staff to this item? Oh, I'll just point the question at James?
Yeah.
Okay. Page 291 of the budget book, there is a proposed $1.45 million reduction to contracted services in the criminal justice system-wide costs. I gather from public comment today and from the budget book entries that this indicates cost-cutting measures relating to contracts with CBOs, faith-based, pro-social life skills, and educational provider contractors to effectuate reductions and this will effectuate potential reductions and elimination of services. Can you walk us through what programs are being impacted? Because it doesn't list it here, and what the deliberative process is to identify where reductions and elimination will occur. And
Sure,
lastly, what is our approach to mitigate the impacts to service?
Yeah, I'd invite Javier to come down. So basically, these are Object 2 funds that are administered through our Office of Diversion and Reentry Services for a wide range of programs.
Good afternoon, Board President Lee and board members. Javier Aguirre, the Office of Diversion and Reentry Services. Along with me is Chad Martins, Assistant Director, and then Key Lee, Deputy County Executive. So just to kind of give a little foundational understanding of the funding for these contracted services. The board had approved about $8.6 million in fiscal year 25, and that was a combination of both ongoing and one time. And then as we were building the budget for fiscal year 26, it was at 7.9 million. Part of that was about 4.7 million in the request for proposals that we issued in the fall of last year. Our priority for that RFP, based on input from various stakeholders, was employment. So we were able to increase employment services. And so we're finalizing negotiations with our contractors for that. Then part of that RFP, we also had a reduced service navigation. We had multiple service navigation. As been noted at Public Safety and Justice, there's too many case managers. There's a lot of navigators, and a lot of folks are confused as to who's helping them as they get released from jail. So we intentionally then reduced our service navigation. We also reduced legal services in order to meet the need for employment. So that's part of the discussion and part of the negotiations we're doing now. In terms of the cuts that equal the 1.4 million in the recommended budget, that is spread of the remaining contracts that were currently in negotiations with the providers. So the 4 faith-based centers were looking at reducing their budget. County Office of Ed, we're reducing or eliminating that program. The Carry the Vision, we're looking at reducing some capacity, and then also some other pro-social activities. So that kind of looked at, and then we also looked at the other smaller agreements that we have, like San Jose City College programs, about $70,000. They serve 30, 40 students per year, so we decided not to cut that program. And then our contract with Superior Court to administer the community outreach court, it's about $55,000. We decided not to cut that program. So we're right now working with our providers to get the exact impact in terms of lower capacity, enrollment, and then also looking at the impact to the education piece.
And Javier and to staff, I appreciate that these are hard decisions to be made, and that I do not doubt that you do not take this lightly at all. But yeah, and we don't take it lightly up here either. So you said that the contract with the County Office of Education is slated for elimination. What program is that?
So that's the high school diploma class. Yes. So we originally had another program with County Office of Ed. We've already reduced that as part of the discussion for the last year. So the remaining piece for County Office of Ed is the high school diploma that is at our reentry center here in San Jose.
That sounds critical, Javier, as part of the reentry journey, right? To be able to, I mean, I hear you, that the emphasis, the policy priority is on employment opportunities, but a high school diploma will also lend to employment opportunities.
Right, and we're currently working with some of our providers to find the alternative pathways for individuals to get their high school diploma. So we reached out to some of the community colleges and then some of the adult schools in some of the school districts to see what pathways there are for. But understand that the high school diploma here is a personalized program that works with individuals with individualized plans.
Yeah, I wonder, and she might smack me for offering her up right now. Mission College, Dr. Sarah Awan. So Mission College is like the free community college right now. They figured out a way to make tuition-free transit free, and they're going to be introducing free food to their students, and books are free. So whatever formula they have over there, sorry, doctor, someone send this to her later. I wonder if there's an opportunity there, if they've been able to figure out with their budget and how to basically facilitate free access to education, higher education. Is there an opportunity for them to develop or be able to house a high school diploma program that we can tap into?
Yes, we already reached out to Mission College, and unfortunately, they cannot house a high school diploma class. They have provided a list of those adult schools that they refer their students who don't have a high school diploma. Keep in mind that sometimes when a student comes to a community college that doesn't have a high school diploma, they may not receive some of that tuition-free guarantee. So there is that benefit for having a high school diploma at community college.
So what I would say on this kind of 1.45 particular piece is that we need to go back and look at some of the details of what's being proposed by the department, much of which is just come to our awareness, and so we're going to go back and take a look at that and see what ultimate recommendations we think make sense to bring to the board on that.
Thank you, James. And thank you, Javier. It was short-sighted of me to assume that you hadn't reached out to Mission College yet, so I appreciate it. It's no surprise that you already had. So thank you for looking into this. I would expect that, I won't speak on behalf of my colleagues, all of our lights are up into some varying degree, but for the budget hearings, when this item comes back, it would be very helpful for the purpose of discussion and for our votes to know exactly what is left on the table. After you go back and review it, James, what portion, what part of this 1.45 million is being reduced, which contractors and what services they provide. I think that this board has already, Susan, and you raised a good point, and Supervisor Sylvia raised it yesterday, that there's certain policy priorities that I don't think this board can support the cutting or reduction of. And I'm speaking to the choir here, but your work and the work that we heard from our public commenters today, right? The efforts to reduce recidivism, successful reentry into back to our communities, that really is the ultimate outcome of a public safety system, right? That's how we enhance and create safer communities. So thank you, James, for reviewing this. I look forward to seeing it come back, and I would also be, I would prefer if it can come back sooner rather than later, to give us enough time to be able to also reach out to our departmental staff to understand the impact to services.
Well, I think the board can expect to see this come back with revised recommendations,
Okay.
because, like I said, some of this is information that I'm just learning about, and, that I'm not comfortable with the recommendation.
Thank you, James. I share in your discomfort.
Supervisor Ellenberg.
Thank you. And Supervisor Young, I'm just going to say me too, to all of that. I recognize and understand that the AB 109 expenditures are currently exceeding our available revenues. And James, thank you for walking through that and explaining that it's not likely to get better. And once again, I am proud of our county and proud of the way that we have really kind of maximized and squeezed every penny out of every dollar to serve this population. You've heard it from two colleagues. I'm the third. I also can't support reducing funding for this already very under-resourced system that the board has said where we have said that expanding alternatives to incarceration is a priority. And I have just spun my notes out. Hold on. I have a question about the timing also. We got department board, at the policy committees, we got department board proposals. I don't recall, but correct me, Javier, if these cuts were in the proposal that was reviewed by FGOC?
I would think that because of where this budget unit falls, it would actually have been PSJC, but
What was I saying?
I think you said FGOC.
Oh, I meant PSJC. I meant PSJC.
No, the proposals to look at the reduction was not included in that report. It was just the recommended budget for the other public safety and justice, but not for this proposal. This came out on the May 1st as part of the county executive's James Williams budget in terms of the.
Thank you for
exact-
clarifying that, but I'm glad I didn't miss it, but this is something that certainly would have warranted discussion at the committee level, even FGOC, before coming to this process. It caught me a little bit by surprise. And really, you could have been reading my notes, Supervisor Young. I also was going to ask for a clear understanding of the implications of the proposed reductions, what would happen with the contract. So I'm not going to duplicate that request, but I'll add my interest in seeing that. I want to thank all of the advocates, they may be gone, who came and spoke out and brought this to our attention. That's literally your job, so thank you for doing it well and powerfully. And we are moving toward a county that is safer, healthier, and sometimes prevention means preventing any trauma from happening, and sometimes it means, on this deeper end, preventing further trauma. And our goal should be, if anyone has to come into contact with our criminal legal system, that it's one and done. So continuing to focus funding there, I think, is critically important. I did ask last year, and I couldn't remember where, either during a reentry network meeting, I asked for more detail, James, on eligible uses of AB 109 dollars. I'm still interested in that information, including any things, if there are, that are specifically prohibited to be funded by AB 109, just in terms of continuing to build my understanding of that fund.
Sure, we can certainly provide that information. I mean, I do think, given where that fund sits, I don't think we're in a position to be expanding uses related to it, but
I'm
we can
not
absolutely
suggesting
provide
that.
that information.
I want, I'm not looking for that information in order to come back with a proposal, but just so that I can understand where we are able to use those funds and what prohibited uses are.
Yeah, we can definitely provide that.
In a generic academic sense, but in a very real and specific sense, I'm interested in the report that Supervisor Young requested. Thank you.
Yes, Vice President Arenas?
Thank you. So I don't know that I'm going to, well, yes, I'm going to repeat myself. Because yesterday, what I was, the example that I had yesterday was about making sure that we were continuing to invest, and I'm very supportive of this, in primary care, so that we don't have emergency care costs later, and we save ourselves a lot of money, right? And that's the same concept that I think, at least I don't, myself, I don't want to misrepresent anybody else, but it's what we can do now in order to make sure that the costs in the future aren't greater. But it's not just the cost of the services, it's the cost of the lives of the people who are involved. And so if we have less pretrial services, then we have less people providing guidance to the judges and the courts in order to, whether they detain or not, right? That also feeds the system. It could starts even before then with Prop 36, and it helps decide whether somebody's going to have a felony, a misdemeanor. We just heard from Damien. Yeah, there's some that folks who wouldn't have been caught with a felony, but now that's where they're at. And so I think for me, there's this lack of comprehensive plan to the impact of the justice-involved community. And it is so easy to forget about the justice-involved community because they got themselves there, because they are paying for their crimes. But then what? What do we do with those folks? And, you know, there was a speaker who said, Yesenia, she said, for us not to continue the punishment and give them lifelines. And that's really what I'm hoping that we do. And I know I'm also, I think one of my colleagues said, you know, we're the choir and we're preaching to each other. But I think this is part of the conversation that we need to have collectively as a board to either unify the way that we approach justice-involved community and the decisions, the kind of policy decisions that we are going to make. And, you know, one of the things that we talked about last week, it seems so far away, was about the Latino health assessment. And for example, and I didn't break this down, but the juvenile court cases, there's 70% of Latinos that make up the juvenile court cases, even though they only represent 33% of the child population in this county. And then the detention, of course, goes between 73 to 77%. And we all know that once a youth touches the justice system, it is very hard for that system to let them go. And if we don't have the kind of support services, then we are creating a system that's going to feed itself over and over and over again. So I understand that the AB 109 has some structural issues where the cost of living isn't catching up. It is just growing in terms of costs. The costs are outgrowing the revenues. But it doesn't answer the question about whether these are the services that we need to either continue with, that are part and parcel, that are effective, that are the best practices, that have been found to be crucial to our justice-involved population. And that, to me, is what is missing. So part of what I'll ask for is in this comprehensive plan to address the criminal justice system is to take a look at what is working and what isn't. What is being underutilized and what isn't. I know we have contracts in DFCS just as well that are being underutilized. And I don't know whether it's because they're just, those approaches are not effective, or because there's not enough children in the system, whatever that is, but I want us to take a look a little more comprehensively to the system in terms of what is going to happen, because there was a lot of thought about the reasons why we pursued regional hospital and we purchased it and we made a huge investment. And we knew what those reasons were. We knew what those investments were going to render, and we knew what those investments were also going to save us. And I'm sad to say that we haven't given our criminal justice system the same, just the same chance to establish whether we are hurting or helping. And the comprehensive plan that I'm asking for needs that critical analysis. The same kind of analysis that was given to other systems needs to be given to this one, just the same. Anyways, I think we don't have a motion, and I think there was already a suggestion. So I'm not sure if this coincides with what has already been suggested, but that is my ask of you, James.
I think it does make sense that we do a comprehensive assessment across the criminal justice space, including, what programs are working or not. And, in particular, it's important that we examine, because most of the programs and services are general fund, that, we examine where we want to shift resource allocation to make investments that might be upstream, knowing that the payoff downstream might not happen for a while. And then we just have to be comfortable with the downstream impact in the interim if we want to shift resources in that way. But I think that would be an exciting endeavor to undertake. We also, I think, have some real opportunities in this space for efficiencies. And what I mean by that is, by design, across the criminal justice system, we have a system that, for well-intentioned and good reasons associated with due process, has lots of independent actors, whether it's the courts, you have the public defender. If there's conflicts, you've got alternate defender, you've got the IDO panel. Of course, you have the independently elected sheriff and district attorney. We have pretrial services providing separate input to the court on how certain folks are handled. We, of course, have the probation department doing the same. We have reentry services. And in many cases, you're actually touching the same individual across all of those departments. And we have done things, well-intentioned things, in those specific departments that replicate similar service provisions. So we'll have certain services provided through probation that overlap with certain services funded by reentry, that overlap with certain services and outreach provided by the public defender's office with its embedded social workers, that overlap with services being provided through to the same family, potentially through DA victim services or other pieces. Now, there's reasons why some of those things need to remain separated. I'm not suggesting you can, just willy-nilly merge everything together. But whether it's data sharing that's necessarily compartmentalized and has duplicate entry of information, whether it's funding the same service providers in all sorts of different separate funding streams that are fragmented contracts that have different RFP processes and different criteria, whether it's service delivery provided by behavioral health or social workers or others fragmented into these different pieces. Even if we can't break down all of those barriers for structural reasons or legal reasons, there's a lot of opportunity, as I see it in this space, for more effectively delivering services to those families we're talking about, and being able to thereby utilize those resources in a manner that can much more efficiently and expansively provide service. So there are some proposals in that vein that have been included both in last year and this year's budget. I particularly would call out some of the proposals that we've seen from the probation department in that vein. But there's a lot more work to do in this space. And so, yes, I think it does make sense to do a more comprehensive examination. And I think it's going to be really critical, actually, in looking ahead, in particular to FY27, because I think if there are opportunities that can be identified in this calendar year associated with some significant restructurings and reorganization of those services, that could pay some significant dividends to address the need to stretch these resources further in that subsequent process.
I appreciate that. And there is some very creative reimbursement for CalAIM, I think, in OSH that we'll be talking about for outreach and engagement. And I wonder if that approach or that strategy has been exhausted in all of those different areas that you talked about.
Yes, I think that's one strategy for sure. It hasn't been. The future of CalAIM is a little up in the air. But that's not a reason that we shouldn't continue to pursue maximizing it while we currently can. But on an additional federal news front, the federal CMS has indicated that it won't be on a go-forward basis approving the kind of flexibilities in utilization of those funds that basically is the core of what CalAIM is. But regardless of that, while it's in place, which it currently is, that is a place where we should be seeking to maximize opportunities.
Well, I'd say the sooner the better, while we still have the source. I appreciate your understanding. I appreciate my colleagues' contributions as well. I think collectively we're all having a very similar message and culminating in the same place where it is we want to make sure that we make decisions about our criminally justice involved population in a more comprehensive way, and whether that is taking a look at efficiencies, taking a look at overlapping services. But there's definitely a need for us to do at least the analysis, so we can recognize what the problems or where their obstacles are, and then at the very least address them or recognize them and have some workarounds. So I'm excited about this. I think, when Supervisor Ellenberg and I, and Supervisor Ellenberg really led on our violence prevention initiative, we had similar thoughts about housing this all in one, kind of under one roof, if you will, so that we could have those kinds of conversations. This is occurring naturally, but I'd love for us to continue to see how that initiative can hold our criminal justice system and the health and well-being of our community as well, because that's what it represents, in a way that I think is meaningful and not just a initiative or another program that we approve, but that it has a place in our systems, and we really integrate it structurally. So thank you.
Thank you. Couple of follow-up questions. I think most of my questions has been requested. A lot is to do with this AB 109 issue that we've talked about. One question I did want to clarify, if I may, is the additional one-time AB 109 fund from the state. And I believe I read something that says that it has now we have received $2.2 million less, such that reentry, of course, won't be able to gain some of these funds. So I just want to double check to see, did we not get these one-time funds, and how did that happen?
I'm not exactly sure if are you referring to the fact that there's the separate growth allocation in AB 109? Is that? There's a base allocation, right, we get, and there's a growth allocation. Those are just different parts of the formula that the state uses for allocation to counties for AB 109. That growth allocation was in the 2 million something range. Is that what you're referring to?
Sounds like
So that's just part of the formula associated with how the sales tax is allocated to counties.
I see.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Javier.
So I believe, that $2 million was approved by the board for the adopted budget from last year. And that was to help us with the services that we had in place.
Mm-hmm.
And the action that the board took was then move that one time and make it ongoing. So then the allocation that the board approved is 7.9. So in that sense, you removed the one time and created the ongoing for reentry services.
Right. So in that sense, those funds, at least as currently proposed, we're still going to be continuing that.
So currently, we are working with OBA and our CEO fiscal office to identify which of the remaining funds are unspent of the $2 million one-time to see what we could do with that. So that's a discussion that we're all undertaking in terms of the rollover request.
Okay, good, thank you. You know, certainly there's lots of challenges in trying to balance the budget and this lack of AB 109 funding that we talked about, but certainly the proposed cutting of some of the reentry services that we have heard today from so many speakers, from my colleagues, I think we have consensus here that that needs to be fixed. And James, thanks for you mentioning it. That I think you mentioned you want to bring it back to us to see what type of additional adjustment before we vote on this down the road, yes?
Yes, we'll be bringing back some revised recommendations related to this.
Because we certainly want to exhaust all possible funding sources to look at the possible ways to fund these important services and contracts that I think it's so clear to us that is absolutely something that we could not shortchange. The need of this funding, I think, has been repeated so many times by so many folks, how successful it is. This is a program that has shown to work, and for so many people's lives is life-changing, so I just want to make sure that we are saying that over and over again, so we'll get back to this again. Thank you, James. I think that's the last item I have on 14E. Thank you, Javier. And then we'll go ahead and move on to item 15, which is the overview of the department under the Housing, Land Use, Environment, and Transportation Committee. Hewlett. So, just want to check in with my colleagues here. Should we do the same thing? See how many folks wants to pull in items 15A through F? Supervisor Abikoga?
Thank you, President Lee. I'd like to pull 15A and 15B.
A and B. Supervisor Young?
Also 15A and 15C.
C. Okay.
A and C.
A and C. All right.
A and C, and I'll raise you E and F.
All right. Okay, so I have clerk, just make sure I have captured 15A, B, C, E, and F. Correct?
That's correct.
All right, let's roll to 15A, Office of Supportive Housing.
Are you taking public comment?
Oh, yes, I'm
first,
so
or-
sorry. Of course we need to do that. All right, how many in the public would like to speak on item 15, A through F?
It doesn't appear that anyone of the public wants to speak. No cards in chambers and no hands raised in
Great,
Zoom.
okay, let's go and close that public portion. And should we go straight to questions, Supervisor Abikoga?
Thank you, President Lee. Yes, so on 15A, I am concerned about the massive cuts that are being proposed at HUD, the Housing and Urban Development in Washington, D.C., particularly regarding Section 8 housing, the voucher program, and how that could significantly impact our residents in our county. I've heard that there's 80,000 households in the Bay Area that are under the housing voucher program, and given potential cuts, I just wanted to highlight this, ask for staff comment, but I think this will happen quickly, and so we need to have quick solutions. And you've heard me often say we need to explore the whole spectrum of housing options, including safe parking, transitional housing, rental assistance, and rapid rehousing. But I just had some questions, or just wanted to get your thoughts on how we might be preparing for these federal cuts.
Thank you, Supervisor, for the question. We are working really closely with the Santa Clara County Housing Authority, as well as our other partners across our continuum of care, Destination Home, our cities in our jurisdiction to prepare for the cuts and understand what we don't know right now, but also thinking what we may do if there are cuts coming. So, for example, we already know there is reduction, or there is the emergency housing vouchers funding for those will continue through 2026. But after that, we are working with the Housing Authority to come up with a plan to make sure that families remain housed and we're able to provide support as a system to those families. So we'll be doing the same thing with any other future cuts and are watching the federal budget closely.
Thank you. I know we talk about the success of Measure A and the funds being expended. I serve on the, as you know, the Bay Area Housing Finance Authority. We're starting to talk about a strategic plan, but more and more, to be frank, I think about the need probably for us to do something here in our own county soon, like identifying our next dedicated funding stream. I know there's a lot of competing interests, but I guess, yeah, I'm looking for some direction, or how do we, and I don't know the genesis of Measure A, the origin story, but the full origin story, but how, going back and I guess looking at that experience and how that came about, I do think that we do need to be thinking about what our next revenue source is going to be.
Yes, and there's several needs, right? There's obviously a need for capital funding to complete even those projects that are already in the pipeline that don't have sufficient funding to move forward, since our Measure A funds have been committed. There's a need for dealing with the ongoing operating costs, to the point of the conversation we just had about some of these reentry services. There's a need for county facilities. The county hasn't had a facility general obligation bond since 2008. And as the board saw yesterday with the capital conversation, there are billions of dollars in capital needs in the 10-year plan that are reliant and expressly called out as being reliant on a general obligation bond. So I think the reality is that all three of those pieces are probably necessary over the next couple cycles. And the question will, of course, be what ultimately do we believe is something that the electorate will support? And particularly in light of the 2/3 voter approval threshold for a general obligation bond. I think we were all hopeful that Proposition 5, which was on the ballot last year, would pass and lower the general obligation bond voting threshold for us down to 55% like it is for school districts. Unfortunately, by a small margin, but unfortunately the measure did not pass, but that would have given us a much more straightforward pathway to ask our voters in our community for that critical capital investment, both for county facilities and for completing the housing pipeline. And as you know better than many of the rest of us, that was also one of the reasons that regional measure did not move forward last year. So it's something we're acutely aware of. I think all three of those pieces are things that are top of mind, and a lot of it is an assessment of, when will there be an appropriate opportunity that looks like it might have a likelihood of successfully moving forward, with, of course, a supportive campaign. But last year was not a very good environment, and there's so much unknown that I feel like it's too early to gauge exactly where things will sit. But I think what you're hearing from administration's perspective is, given the magnitude of the threats facing us, the magnitude of the capital needs that we have, that at the appropriate time, all three of those are necessary things that we believe are essential for the well-being of this community.
Thank you. Yes, so given that to prepare for a ballot measure, there's a number of steps that we have to do prior, including polling and whatnot. I'm going to say this, given our current situation and the unpredictability and of what's going to happen this fall, we're probably not looking at something for 2026. And the reason why, I've been in other conversations, as you know, there's a talk of a regional transportation measure. There's the city of San Jose, I've heard, is looking at some things, and I was on a call this morning with transportation folks, but just the need, I think, would be helpful if all the different entities who are thinking about going out for a measure in the next 2 to 4 years get together and maybe talk through this, because voter approval right now is so low anyway, but to inundate the voters at the same time with ballot measures, I think would just not be a very helpful, or would not set us up for success. So
I do think that engagement is really important. I would not say that we're not necessarily thinking of something for 26. I think the depending on what happens, for example, with Medicaid, I think that we may come before the board with recommendations related to that. We're very far out still from that time frame. So but I think we have to have those conversations, and we have to also hear what's happening with some of the regional conversations, and also at the state level. It's going to be interesting to see what the state's response will be to some of these federal changes too, and whether the legislature looks like it did in 2011 when it last faced really significant challenges, whether it's looking for any state level options as well. So that's something that I haven't heard anything specific. I'm not referring to anything concrete, lest anyone think I'm referring to something specific floating out there, but I think it's just worth naming that as well.
Could I ask just a very quick interruption? Yes, I know that we have a statutory extension on the time in which we could increase our sales tax. Does that expire in 2026 or 2028?
It expires in 2028.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess I think that's fine to continue to explore if that is something that we can feasibly do. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, Supervisor Jung.
Thank you. I'm just going to add my plea, my request. I know it's not your job, but prior to 2016, housing was not the county's job. Part of the impetus for Measure A was that the state wasn't building it, the cities weren't building it. So our county board of supervisors and our county administration says we're going to take all the good and the bad and take on this role. So adding to the list of things that are not our jobs is to reclaim the narrative around Measure A. There's a lot of discussion here, and there'll be more discussion to follow. I come off the heels of a 19-month campaign where I found myself defending Measure A at every other door that I knocked on, every other constituent that I spoke to. It wasn't hard to defend because we audit ourselves 4 times a year. And we audit ourselves so hardcore that the auditors gave us an award.
Yes.
We maximize every single dollar. We have exceeded all expectations. The promises of the Measure A campaign in 2016, we have over-delivered all of that. So for the public record, and my ask to you, in preparation for these considerations in the future, to unjam pipelines, right? Part of that, and just part of good governance for ourselves too, right, is to reclaim the narrative of Measure A. The fact sheets that we have in here are fantastic. If there's a spot on the website that have all of them readily available for download or to share as a graphic for every single Measure A development we've created, that would be a huge help to me in terms of communicating to the world what we have done here at the county. So there's that. And I'm not going to ask to simplify the audits. I've heard that before. I was like, no. Like, we simplify audits, we're glossing over things, and people will think we're hiding something. Like, as detailed as they are, they're a pain to go through, like all 1,000 pages of them. But the get those audits out more, sunshine that more to people so that we know. And that's just really a long and roundabout way of saying, really great job, Office of Supportive Housing. My other question for this section is about the CalWorks housing support programs. I'm going to defer that to my colleagues because they raised it during the social services discussion, and I'm going to give that space to continue the conversation.
Supervisor, if I can just say one thing on the Measure A. We are at the next board meeting, May 20th, having an update on our progress, and so that'll be a good opportunity to talk about kind of the status of where we're at, some of the projects that have continued to move forward, and so it'll be another great opportunity to sunshine the incredible work that our department has done, and so I just wanted to flag that for you.
Thank you. And, we asked 66.67 of our constituents to vote yes on this. That was the threshold for passing this. We made it by less than a point at 67.1%. That was a huge vote of confidence from our public, and I think it's really important for them to know that it paid off tenfold. Thank you. So social media blitz, that's what I'm hearing?
Yep, May 20th.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going to pile on a little bit. At first, when I sat next to Cindy for years, every time Measure A came up, I thanked her profusely for her leadership, and really, Betty, almost even more so yours for leading that tremendous and successful campaign. I really do remain in awe of it. What I would like to see, and maybe this is already coming on May 20th, it is great to toot our horn about the projects that have been finished and that people are living in. What I would like to see is of the projects that are not up and occupied, what is the status, and where do we need to press? Are they waiting for state tax credits? Are they waiting for city permitting or zoning? Because I'd like to make the point very clearly that we have done our part. We said we would finance permanent supportive housing units, and we have allocated every dollar, more than $717 million, for those permanent supportive housing units, and yet only 28 of those projects are built and opening. And I think about the number of building permits in several of our cities that have been declining over the years. But even when the permit numbers were higher, the units weren't getting built. So again, we have done our part by providing this financing. I want us to be hitting really solidly on how other partners need to step in to make these last projects a reality. And you can help us be better advocates if we know exactly which levers to pull, where the delays and barriers are, and which simply just need more funding. That's relevant as well. But I would love to see that breakdown. And I agree with you, of course, but where I think we have a challenge, and this is why the narrative is so critical, is that despite the fact that we have committed funds to so many projects, despite the fact that we have funded so many units and gotten so many people off the streets, not just through Measure A, but through our homelessness prevention work, through other great things that we're doing, as long as the number of unsheltered people appears to be the same, we are playing defense, and we should not be, but it's not helpful to say, well, it could have been so much worse. That's not compelling. And I think for us to be compelling, we need not only the statistical success of Measure A, which we've got all the receipts for, but we have to win the public's trust, or win it again, that this is the right path. And that when people say it takes too long to build housing and it's too expensive, first of all, we've done it. Second of all, we, and I mean government at large, are the ones that have made it so expensive and take so long. Like, we can control those things. Cities can make faster permitting rules. Can we get the state to move faster on the tax credits? And I'm fully aware, as 3 of my colleagues were, that I've never been a city council member, haven't sat in a city government, so I don't know what it takes. But I think it's really critical that we show that this is the path to success, and the only flaw in Measure A was that we didn't have enough funds to keep going and going and going. So all of that to say thank you, and happy to hear from the city folks about how you think the building could be done faster, but not quite yet, because I want to share a few other comments, which is really our successful approach on prevention and early intervention as really proven models of success. You and your office, KJ, just do great work, as Consuelo did before you, and as Key did before, to make sure that people have a path to becoming housed as well as staying housed. So thank you, just thank you for that. Back to when we're ready to talk about new revenue measures, really illustrating the success of prevention, I think is so critical, because that's even cheaper than shelters. That's even cheaper than tiny homes. And that is statistically significant work. If MIT says it's good, it must be good. I do want to come back to the questions that I raised earlier around the Heading Home campaign and the federal impacts outlined in the budget, as of course I am most concerned always about impacts to our kids and families. So I'm going to flip to James for a second. With respect to our earlier conversation, you mentioned that there was $27 million in general funds being backfilled in the OSH budget. Can you provide us, if not now, off agenda, a list of which programs and services were backfilled? And I'm asking because I want to try to keep track of any programs and services that are being cut, and I want to make sure that that the young families that I've prioritized through so many efforts are not left behind.
So we're fully backfilling 100% of the federal funding for the Office of Supportive Housing. So if you look at page 6 of the budget book, and the specific programs are listed on
If we're
page 7.
backfilling, sorry, let me just clarify. If we're backfilling what you lost in federal funds, what does that mean for the state programs that we didn't have to rely on in OSH because we were getting the money through CFSC? But if we're having a reduction in the CalWorks housing support, in the HDAP, in bringing families home and in home safe, are we backfilling those too? Or through other programs here, is what I'm asking. How do we not have an impact?
So I'll let KJ describe
losing this money?
what these programs fund and support, and you know, that continuum of supports, and how they also provide support to those same families.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for the question, Supervisor, and I apologize, before I answered the first question, I didn't introduce us. KJ Kaminsky, Acting Director for the Office of Supportive Housing, and I'm joined by Hillary Armstrong, our Deputy Director, and Deputy County Executive Consuelo Hernandez. So in terms of the federal backfill, that is our continuum of care is our largest federal source, and that funds permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing programs. The programs within that are the funding is supporting direct rental assistance for those clients in some cases, supportive services that are matched with housing authority vouchers in some cases, and for some projects, it's providing both rental assistance and supportive services. Those, the proposed backfill for those programs will allow us to keep those folks who are currently in those programs housed, as well as maintain the capacity of our existing supportive housing system from the county funding perspective. For the programs that we operate in partnership with SSA, The proposal that shows a reduction is really, as I mentioned earlier, bringing it back to its base budget. What we had been able to do is temporarily increase the capacity of the CalWORKS HSP program and the HDAP program with one-time state additional funds. So really, it reflects going back to sort of the base, which it will allow us to continue to serve the existing families that are in the program, as well as 110, this is CalWORKS HSP, excuse me for not clarifying. For CalWORKS HSP, for example, we can serve the current families in the program and another 110 new families each year.
First of all, that's awesome. Second of all, I don't fully understand it. Was HSP a program that just popped up in the last year or two and we got some additional money and now we're going back?
No, CalWORKS HSP we have had funding and have been operating that program for several years.
Okay.
And over the last 3 to 4 years, I would have to look exactly when additional funds came in. The state would reallocate funds mid-year, typically around the fall, and give us some additional funds for those programs above the base amount. So we were able to temporarily expand those programs.
Okay.
So this reflects going back to the base, which is, what our permanent capacity for those programs will remain until there's
So the programs are not going away. CalWORKS HSP is not disappearing. It is retreating to a lower former funding level.
Correct.
Got it. And what I see here is in the current year, it was at 4.7 million combined federal and state, and we're losing almost 2 million of that, 1.8 million. Or that's the net change.
In combination for CalWORKS HSP and HDAP, the reduction, yes, is 4.7. So that breaks out into 1.8 million reduction for CalWORKS HSP, and a 2.9 million reduction in the HDAP Housing Disability Advocacy Program. That program will also, similar to the CalWORKS HSP program, those funds that we were receiving that are reduced here were supplemental one-time additional funds. The state is now going back to their base budget, which for us will be an allocation of about $1 million. For the HDAP program, we use those funds to leverage other funds to match with the HDAP program, including some of our interim housing. So we'll continue to be able to serve the individuals in that program who, with the disability advocacy, the case management support, and use other funding within our supportive housing system to continue to provide some interim housing and still be able to serve approximately 150 households a year through the HDAP program.
Is that a reduction in number of families served?
For the HDAP program, it's largely individuals.
Yeah,
for that
HDAP
program.
isn't young families, right? That's people of all
Yes,
age.
it's primarily single adults.
So CalWORKS, are we having to reduce the number of families that we can serve?
There will be, in the CalWORKS HSP program, there will be, we will serve fewer people with the HSP services this year because of, we don't know whether we will get the one-time funding.
Got it.
But those families are also being served across our supportive housing system. So thanks to the support of the county executive and chief operating officer, because we have backfill for the potential loss of our federal funds, we can maintain the capacity of the rest of the system that would be able to potentially support those CalWORKS families too. We serve CalWORKS families in more than just the programs that are funded by the state. CalWORKS families are supported in our prevention system. They are enrolled in permanent supportive housing and rapid rehousing across the supportive housing system, and we'll continue to do that.
Supervisor, I think this gets to actually part of the conversation we were having in the context of the criminal justice system, which is, there are many different programs and funding streams that provide similar services, or sometimes are serve the same or overlapping eligible
right, but
population.
we have people like KJ who knows what's happening across the whole county in all the departments.
Well, and that's why we've tried to actually. That's why, for instance, you don't see in the example of this particular program, we didn't have SSA stand up its own separate housing program. They transfer the funding to Office of Supportive Housing so that it would be centrally managed in that way. And so I think the way we think about these funding streams is holistically. So it's what is our global capacity across these different housing programs to then meet the greatest needs in the community. And of course, we know in aggregate across all the programs, we don't have sufficient capacity to meet all of the community need. That's been well discussed. But to your point of ensuring that we are not just maintaining, but in fact in this budget substantially increasing general fund support for these programs and services, whether that's a mix of a particular, one singular state funding stream or these other federal funding streams, in aggregate, what you see in the recommended budget is an absolute affirmation of support for this continuum of programs.
I very much appreciate that, and I'm certainly largely agnostic as to where the funds come from, as long as we're not seeing the negative impacts on children and families who are at risk of becoming homeless. I just want to check on three other, and I'll do these more quickly. The Heading Home campaign, the original goal was to wrap up by 2026. I believe we've given all the vouchers. Is that program sort of quietly ended, or are we going to continue that in this next fiscal year?
We will continue supporting and trying to expand family programs and maintaining the programs that we have been able to expand. So the campaign is ongoing, we don't unfortunately have new vouchers like we did 2 or 3 years ago dedicated to families that we were able to house that kind of increased amount in 2022 and 2023. But the campaign is ongoing. We will still continue to work to house as many families as possible.
Are these the families that will be impacted by the much shorter expiration of the vouchers? Are these the vouchers that were supposed to go to 2035 and just go to 2026? Or is that someone else's nightmare?
Some of the families housed through the Heading Home campaign overlap with the emergency housing vouchers, and that was part of the success. And like I said, we're going to work with working with the Housing Authority to plan for that, and they're communicating with the residents in their programs to know that, so that the families know that we're working on a plan to support them, but it's not entirely EHVs. The Heading Home campaign also included many families supported through our prevention system, as you've seen in the quarterly reports, and families supported in both permanent supportive housing and other rapid rehousing across our other programs that are reflected in the budget for next year that we'll be able to continue to maintain because of the support in the budget.
The complexity of this is truly astounding. Bringing families home, also, they all have names that are far too similar, which is very challenging. But bringing families home is for families in the child welfare system experiencing or at a risk of homelessness. That number has been brought down to 0 from, or there's a reduction from 3.9 to 3.4. What do you know what's happening with that one? That's another state fund.
This one is one in which OSH does not operate the program, but I am familiar with it, and I know the decrease reflects the state reduction, but that SSA is also planning, is making sure that the families in the program currently continue to receive services through the end of the program for them.
So this is an SSA, not an OSH program.
That's correct.
Super cool. Okay. And Home Safe, is that also SSA? That's for individuals involved in adult protective services.
Thank you, Supervisor Ellenberg, for the question. Consuelo Hernandez, I just wanted to clarify that OSH does work very closely with SSAs on both programs. It's more a function of who manages the contract.
Got it.
So we've originally, as OSH, during my tenure, we did play a larger role in the bringing families home, but most recently with the requirements of the state, we always focus on what is the most efficient way of delivering service. And for bringing families home specifically, it made more sense for SSA to serve in the lead, but OSH still meets with SSA to discuss the program.
Thank you both. Thank you so much for your patience with my questions. When does the children's budget get published? Because I have to say that's where I pull a lot of this information from. It comes out after the full budget,
It
right?
comes out in the fall.
The fall.
I can't recall the exact date, but it comes out
Okay.
in the fall, and of course, it's shared publicly and provided to
Yeah,
the
of
board
course.
and goes to committee.
I just wanted to remember the timing. I'll get back to that later. Okay, thank you very much, colleagues.
Vice President?
Thank you. Most of my questions were already answered. And I just want to add that to my colleagues, I wanted to let them know that I think it was during Hewlett, I had asked for a public campaign to be done by the Office of Supportive Housing so that we could make sure that we have positive messaging for our community members before we actually ask them to be supportive of a project, of a build-out. And I know that that is in play, so I just wanted to let folks know that you're working on something already, correct?
Yes, that's correct, Supervisor.
Perfect. You've already answered my questions through my team earlier, and so I'm good with the rest of this item. Thank you.
All right. Okay, yes, anything, James? We good? Okay, all right. All right, let's go to, since we didn't pull B, actually, we did pull B. Supervisor Abikoga?
Thank you,
15B.
President Lee. So for planning and development, first of all, I wanted to appreciate the success in cost recovery that's being done. I know that the department is going to continue to look at cost recovery and fee changes to get to full cost recovery over the next couple of years, which I think is very important. But I guess I'm concerned in light of all of the, frankly, builder remedy projects that have come through due to the housing element. I'm concerned about the proposals, the number of proposals, and they're time specific, and a lot of them require immediate review and processing, or else it could lead to potential litigation. So in an effort to avoid litigation costs, I wanted to ask, in terms of staffing, is there a need? I have experience, prior experience, where we've had developers offer to fund another position or a temporary position to get their projects through the process. So just was hoping to get some insights on staffing and ways we might be able to increase staffing with, no cost to the county.
Yes, Supervisor, you're absolutely right that in several cases the applicant will actually fund some of the costs. what we've done in the past, we do have challenges with filling some of the staff level positions. And what we've done in the past when there's been kind of urgency in moving forward through projects is rely on some consulting support and assistance. I know some cities do that as well, but that's often been a necessary supplement, not replacement, but supplement to county staff throughput, especially when we have bigger waves of things that come our way, which happen only periodically given the scope of the land use jurisdiction for unincorporated areas. So I'll give you an example. Of course, when we have something like the Stanford GUP come through, once a decade, we will augment not by FTE staff, but we will augment by way of additional consulting support. And so if needed to help process and work through builder's remedy projects and ensure that things are moving forward on a timely basis, that's where we'd be looking to provide additional resources, especially because that's the fastest way to do that as opposed to trying to augment by adding FTE.
Great, thank you.
All right, so move to C, 15C, I believe, Supervisor Young.
Thank you.
And as the staff come up on 15C, I'm excited to introduce our new Parks Director. I think it's your first week, right? Second day. Todd Lofgren, who we stole from my hometown of Portland, Oregon.
Oh.
So, and I can speak firsthand that they have an excellent and outstanding Parks and Recreation Department in Portland, and we're very excited to welcome him here to Santa Clara County.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome, Todd.
My mic on? Yeah, it is. Well, thank you very much. Happy to be here.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about the recommendation relating to marketing to underrepresented populations. Fully in support of that. Want to give some feedback that on my social media, the post that just slam dunked it was a static infographic about Parks Library, checking out a park pass from your local library. So I thought I was posting a PSA. Usually I get a handful of likes, but this one blew up. So just want to say there is a prime environment, that, to promote our parks opportunities here. Now, the little booklet, there's a Park Here guide. I'm seeing nodding heads. Those are also the things that we grab as many as we can from your staff, Todd, and we pass them out at events and tabling opportunities. Those are the first to go. So I would say continue leaning in, and maybe this is a time to reevaluate the language or just revamp it. I'm sure updates are necessary because parks are ever-changing landscapes, and we also have a language access unit now that could also help with the cultural competency piece of the translations to enhance our marketing to our underserved communities. Now, our underrepresented populations, are there partnerships in existence that overlap with families that we serve in SSA, through SSA? Could you tell? I see nodding heads. I'd love to hear more about that.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Josie. Thank you, supervisors. I'm Josie Reddick. I'm the Financial Administrative Services Manager, and we actually have a few programs that overlap with social services and public health. So we have been in partnership with them on the Juntos program for some time. It's like a park prescription program, which allows for the doctors to prescribe a walk in the park, and we do events and have them come out to it. And then, of course, they have free admission to the parks. And this year, we're working with social services and public health to actually provide up to 6,000 annual passes that are, so all our parks are, if you walk in, you're fine, but if some have parking, and we are working on getting 6,000 passes out that people who go for eligibility requirements can opt into that program.
Okay, I like that, 6,000 passes. The budget book says we'll provide 3,000.
That's to public health, and the other 3,000 is to social services.
Fantastic, thank you for that. And we'll look forward to those updates. So I think that's it for me. Oh, sorry, I have one more question here.
I just want to add on that particular program. This is a great example. You know, we try to highlight some of these, but the last 2 years we've really been promoting opportunities where our non-general fund departments can actually help and step forward and support safety net related services. So this year, one example of that, there's others, but one example is this is actually our Parks Department stepping up and helping the Public Health Department out with a cut that the Public Health Department was then able to reallocate funding elsewhere while enhancing and supporting this program. So there are a number of those kinds of things. I referred earlier during the AB 109 discussion to the library district picking up a position off of AB 109. So these are things that we affirmatively do and talk with our departments about through the budget process. We had the passport services example last year, but every place where we can find an opportunity to provide a safety net service through a non-general fund source like that, we try to do that and really integrate the core safety net mission of our organization, even in those other departments that don't necessarily on their face have that as part of their inherent identity, but of course, being a part of our county organization, our staff who are in those departments, like the folks you see here from Parks and many of our other departments too, understand that, recognize that, and continue to bring forward really creative proposals like this one to help embed that into their operations.
Thank you for that additional context. I really am a fan of our Parks Department as gateways to nature, and then also now part of the fabric of our safety net. So I wanted to ask about the historical heritage grants. I noticed that I saw that we're zeroing out the funding. Could you tell me more about that? I'm hoping it's because we have so much money there.
Hi, I'm going to take that one again. We have, so that program, because it is has to be in a park, it takes a lot of, people have to have a project in mind, and so we haven't had a lot of applications that have been successful the last 2 years, so we've actually have a nice fund built up. Okay. So when July comes, we're going to open it out again for people to apply for that grant, and we just didn't need to fund it. That was the whole point.
I love that answer. So, and I'm just as excited about the RFP that'll be coming out. Will you also send that to our offices, to my office, so that we're aware of that and can help promote that? I'm sure we could find some good projects in our districts.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. The last thing too is that I this is for follow-up later, me following up with you. I received a letter from one of our local Boy Scouts troop with a lengthy list of recommendations to enhance the park experience. So I'll be sharing that with you, Todd. Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay, Supervisor Ellenberg.
Just very quickly, welcome, Todd. Look forward to meeting you and looking forward to you exploring all 28 of the beautiful county parks. Thank you for mentioning the Juntos RX program. The Outdoor Adventure program is another great program that we have for kids, and just I was excited to see these recognized in the children's budget, and love, James, what you said about just this cross-pollination, and I'm seeing it in conversation after conversation, and you know, governments have such a reputation of being so brutally siloed, and I think we're making a very good case that we are not, and it's working to our financial benefit, and I think it's working to the benefit of our residents. So just thank you.
I appreciate that comment, Supervisor, and I just want to add on to that by saying that one of the things I'm really proud of is we've been working very deliberately with all of our executive leadership in the organization to make sure that there's a holistic understanding of the county as a whole, and that departments know what's happening, that if you're in the Parks Department, you actually understand how the health system works, how it's funded, so that then you're able to make those connections and you can identify programmatic and operational opportunities as well as fiscal opportunities that we can't see from where we sit, but that people can see at the programmatic level in our departments, but only if they can have awareness of the whole. So we've invested a lot of time in those conversations with across the county, across departments, and just continue to express a lot of appreciation for just how many departments have stepped forward with really creative ideas. But it is about breaking down those silos, whether it's within a system itself, like the conversation we had about criminal justice, or even across systems, whether it's a collaboration between parks and public health.
Thank you. And Vice President Arenas?
Yes, I do have one. just this one issue that I have around the East Dunn Avenue, and I think my team has been working with your team on some temporary solutions for our neighbors, which is basically there's any time that there is wet weather, there is a risk for slides and mudslides and all kinds of shenanigans out there. And so I wanted to see, and I know that the Parks Department, just as Supervisor Ellenberg was outlining, is that there's a lot of creativity, and especially for funding, bringing in outside funding. And so I am hoping that we can look for a more permanent repair for these folks out in my community. And so I'm going to request for an RFI so that we can take a look at if we can have an assessment of the costs that are associated with exploring a permanent solution. And this is along East Dunn Avenue, and I can provide you more of those details. It says neighborhood that is around Anderson Lake in Morgan Hill.
Sure, we can look at that.
Perfect. And I think, oh, that is it for this piece. Thank you.
Okay, that's it. All right. So I think that's all we have for 15C. I think the next I see is 15E. Vice President?
Yes, this is. (15E), right?
Roads and airports, correct.
Yes, okay. Oh my gosh, I think I did 15E with the RFI.
Yeah, I was wondering if that might be for roads, but
You know what? I mixed it up. What I wanted to ask for, oh, I'm sorry, can the Parks Department please come back? I mixed up E and F because I'm dyslexic that way. It also applies to letters, numbers, everything. Okay, so actually for the Parks Department, Harvey Bear, and I was lucky enough to participate in the ribbon cutting. This is the only park in San Martin. There's officially no playgrounds except for a school. I know this is what San Martin deals with, and so I'm hoping that we can take a look at Harvey Bear, the master plan that was completed in 2004, see if we can revise it so that my community can maybe look forward to that revision and incorporate some of their wants and needs and desires. Just a playground would be great if that's what they would like. But I know that that's one of the issues they always bring up around parks. I saw you nod, so.
yes, we can look at that.
Perfect. All right. That was for that item. I apologize. But that was really nice of you to say yes to the RFI request under that item. Okay.
Okay. Are we ready to go back to roads?
15.
Are we done with roads? Are we done with roads and airport?
Well, yeah, so what my comment was for the Parks Department was actually for the roads.
So I don't know, Harry, if you have anything you want to comment now on the East Dunn situation, or?
Well, good afternoon, board, president, members of the board. Harry Freitas, I'm with Tony Arata. I figured since we sat here, I could maybe address that, and I'd be glad to write you a memo describing the situation. It's known to the department. It's a long-standing, slow-moving slide.
Yeah.
We've done some engineering analysis on it in the past, and actually, coincidentally, we have an engineer working on it right now, mostly doing exploratory borings, and we'd
great.
like to write a memo. We've been in communication with
Yes,
the
you have.
community.
Thank
So,
you.
they're in contact with us, and they're concerned about the road. The road's open. But we're happy to, I think it's probably a good time for us to write down exactly what's happening up there from a geotechnical standpoint. So happy to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, anytime we can avoid a landslide, that would be great. All righty. I'm gonna, if
Ready?
it's okay
So
with the
go
chair.
to 15F.
At 15F it is.
By districts.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So this, I'm going to get really quick. I know that there's a lot of questions from my South County residents around the transition from the South County Fire District to the Santa Clara Central Fire District. And so what I'm going to ask for is an RFI request so that we can get more, some additional information regarding the upcoming transition, which includes, the projected, hi, Chief. Oh, I didn't even give you a chance to sit down. I promise it won't take very long, and I apologize that you had to wait this long. By the way, let me just start out by congratulating you, Chief, and of course, James, on this restructure, which I know there's been a lot of misinformation. We've seen it locally, how misinformation just, excuse me for the pun, but just, catches up like fire, right? It just catches on. And lots of folks who believe in misinformation. The truth is that you'll be providing some wonderful fire service to my district in a way that I think hasn't been provided before, and with a whole department that can offer on an ongoing basis what our community needs. So I'm really proud of this restructure, and I want to just thank you, James, for holding our community's hand as they go through this. But because there's been so much misinformation, I want to make sure that we proactively provide some transition information. And James, we kind of talked about this a little bit. So I'm hoping that we can provide as much as we can in terms of either the permanent station and how that's going to get built out, and what the temporary station is going to look like, and any transitional infrastructure and staffing needs, and so that folks can really look ahead and get the right information. And then I'll leave it up to you to decide how we can do this. But I just need to make sure that our community gets informed.
Absolutely. So we're anticipating soon receiving the formal notice from LAFCO that the dissolution will be moving forward of the South County District effective July 1. The protest hearing occurred, and there were not sufficient protests received. So that's, I think, very good news for our residents. And County Fire, I know, has been working very hard to have everything in place for that July 1 operation. We are working on maybe you could call it a welcome packet, but basically a material to provide to the residents to introduce County Fire as the new service provider, to provide exactly the kind of information you're talking about, especially because while the 2 of the 3 stations are exactly the same spot, the Morgan Hill station does have a new location. So providing that information, making sure that people know, they might see a white fire truck now. That's one of the distinguishing features of County Fire. But otherwise, ensure that residents know they still call 911. The call is still going to get answered by County Communications, just like it always has been. But now it'll be a seamless response with County Fire. And some of the resources that they'll have available. So I think it's very exciting news. We will update the website, which was geared more towards the specific transition questions with updated information that's more focused on the new operation that's going to be in place, and like I said, provide that packet. So we're working on that now, and we'll have that out to all the residents before that July 1 transition.
White fire engine, I don't think I've ever seen one.
Oh,
So,
you haven't seen one of our county
no,
fire engines?
I haven't seen the white fire engines.
Yep,
but-
they're
so-
white.
Well, that is exciting. We'll receive you just like we received the red ones. All right, I look forward to that. Just once again, thank you so much for hanging in there. I know that there's a lot of folks who were just really aggressive with their campaigns, unfortunately. And thank you for being so patient, so informative, and just really providing as much support as you could to my community. So I'm really grateful for that, Chief, and of course the whole team. So thank you. And that's it for me.
All right, so after item 15, I just want to check with County Council. Item 16, do we need to receive report like a motion or no?
There's no motion necessary presently.
Oh, 16, okay. And I just want to say, does anybody want to speak on 16? Clerk? No?
I have no speaker cards or hands raised in Zoom.
Okay, so we're going to close that as well. And, oh, I got more lights here. Supervisor Ellenberg?
Are you asking for 16?
No, I asked for 16 if anybody, yeah, question.
Oh,
right
I'm
here.
so sorry.
correct.
Everybody's packing. I thought you were asking for public comment on 16.
Yeah, clerk's comment has, nobody wants to speak, so that's what I'm saying. You have any
Okay.
question on 16?
Can I pull D and just make a statement? I'll be really fast.
Sure, go
I'm
ahead.
so sorry. So the 16D is, to be clear, the Community Violence Prevention Plan. And at the February 4th board meeting, all of our colleagues unanimously approved the creation of a countywide Office of Community Violence Prevention and the creation of a Community Violence Prevention Fund to this budget. Certainly, given both the federal and state budget situations, I acknowledge the necessity of deferring the creation of the fund to the fall. But I was disappointed to see that the Office of Community Violence Prevention itself isn't yet incubating in the Office of the County Executive, as my motion had specifically called for. I see and really admire the excellent work that administration has done in very swiftly setting up the Office of Asset and Economic Development and including that in the recommended budget, and yay. But I would have loved to see this same approach replicated for the Office of Community Violence Prevention even before options for funding return in the fall. Can you say a little bit about why even the structure wasn't included in the budget?
Sure.
Thanks.
So Asset Economic Development was actually a pre-existing office that we augmented. What we want to make sure we do here with Office of Violence Prevention is make sure that, especially given the fiscal constraints that we have right now, is we're looking to pull resources to have them be coordinated across multiple departments. With the very significant changes in public health in particular, we needed public health to kind of focus on getting that piece in order.
Sure.
In fact, they were, because of that, late in the budget process, as I think folks in the Health and Hospital Committee know, given their proposal that came to that committee, that they had to rework kind of their whole budget set of proposals in the late March and April timeframe for inclusion in the recommended budget. So we need more time to kind of sort through what FTE and resources we will pull together for the creation of an office. And that's why we've said that we need to kind of defer this to sort those pieces out. We don't
Thank
think
you
it would
for
make sense to
explaining.
just put a random FTE off by itself in the county exec's office.
I think that's reasonable. I had been envisioning that someone could start it up before there was funding, but if there's a date certain and we're looking at this in the fall, and figuring out option A and B, if we've got funding for it, we're going to do this whole show. If we don't have funding, we're still going to do a smaller show, but we are going to start, just as we talked with so many other items today of how we want to pool work together from across the country, county, establish efficiencies, make sure we don't have redundancies, and really work on impact.
That's right, and a big piece of this is for us to complete the assessment of what funding streams and what FTE across multiple departments make sense to coalesce together, or at least organize together, even if they don't necessarily move out of those departments, and fall under kind of this bucket of work.
Okay. Thank you for that. And just speaking of, I can be a little patient on that, but just another patient note that's getting a little bit stressed. In connecting to the community violence prevention work, I was expecting really months ago a full report out on the status of all of our GBI pilots. Haven't seen that. It's not directly a budget ask, but I don't know where else to put it in, and I'd like to get a time certain that we can expect that report. What the status is of each of the pilots, what the funding sources are, and I think that's it. Those are the two things.
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
Can we get that by the second meeting in June?
I would think we can.
I would think so too. I think it's been worked on for a long time. So let's say the second meeting in June. Thank you, colleagues. Sorry.
All right. I have a very brief comment on 16A. Just noticing that the matrix did not capture my request for the EMS trust fund item from the April HXC meeting to be incorporated into the budget workshop. So I know we had a conversation about the hospital designation fees yesterday, which did address my concern, but I just want to have this request be reflected in the matrix. And that being said, with no further comments from my colleague, we'll now recess to Wednesday, May 14th at 1:30 p.m., same channel, same place, and continue the budget workshop, starting with the inventory process. I just want to say thank you to the OBA staff and security staff and community that came to speak on this section of the budget.
All right. Thank you. I'm so sorry I missed that. I thought I had another minute.